聞こえてますか? Kayaknya belum gerak ya? Coba mate. Oke, take your... Ya, ini udah kok, udah mulai. Tapi, udah suaranya nggak ya? Ini nge-freeze ternyata. Halo? Kore, cotto. Kore watashi desu ka? Masaka? Bentar, ini jangan-jangan... ini kah? Halo? Kenapa dia tidak gerak? Kenapa ini? Sebentar. Oke, sebentar ya guys. Bunyi. Kok dia nggak mau gerak ya? Oke. Halo? Finally. Akhirnya gerak. Colabanwaa desu. Ini udah gerakannya berarti ya. Hai semuanya, Colabanwaa. Selamat malam. Selamat datang ke stream tengah malam Kola. Apa kabar semuanya? Coba kita lihat ada siapa aja kah yang udah datang. Hai. Ada Alexei, ada Hotaru Ryugami, ada Tuna. Halo ya Alexei, Ryu, Tuna. Halo semuanya. Ini suaraku kekecilan gak sih kalau kayak gini? Aku masih agak bingung soalnya. Atau kegedean kah? Aku kayak ganti setting mic-nya, cuma gimana ya, karena headset sama pokoknya kayak speakerku itu kayak agak rancu-rancu gitu suaranya, jadi kayak walaupun udah ganti equalizernya juga tetap aja kayak kurang kelihatan gitu apa bedanya. Soalnya ini settingannya aku ringanin suaranya tuh, aku buat lebih crisp daripada yang kemarin-kemarin. Jadi nggak tahu, mungkin kekecilan kah? Ini belum pasang BGM sih tapi. Hai. Jaja, kita pasang dulu kali ya. Mbak Kola mau nggak menjadi apa ini Ryu? Mau jadi apa? Mau jadi apa kalian? Oke. Cotto mate. Bentar, aku mau buka link streamingnya buat ngecek komen kalian. Kalau suaranya bocor maafkan. Cotto mate. Kore tanamnya. Cotto. Kenapa kalau ini ini trackingnya agak aneh lagi nih. Kenapa kalau aku lagi mingkem dia nggak mau mingkem? Oh, udah mau mingkem, baiklah. Ram, jangan lari, balik. Hehehe. Halo semuanya yang baru datang juga, halo. Ini baru mau mulai kok. Tadi kalau mau ngapain ya? Kayaknya kalau mau pasang BGM. Moga-moga koneksinya kuat. Soalnya tadi HP Kola jatuh. Saya dari tadi sore kayaknya internetnya ngaco. Ini kalau ada bunyi kayak teretak itu tiang penyangga HP-nya Kola ya. Kola pakai tiang penyangga. Tiang penyangga. Oh ya, hai. Kore desu yo ne. Hai, cotto matte. Memang susah. Setupnya ya, pakai setup yang tidak biasa memang agak susah. Alexei, jangan laporan. Laporan apa ini? What are you guys doing? Hai. Oh ya, tadi mau nyari itu ya, nyari BGM. Mana BGM teh? Lah kenapa aku malah buka ini? Cotto mate, kore janai yo. Kore janai tte ba. Hai ne. ini, tapi yang ini ditutup aja kali ya. Hmm. Nada. Mana ini? Aman pak, asal bagi foto Shironeko. Shironeko te dare? Kalian ngomongin apa ini? Hei hei hei. Dasar. Tomaten ya? Nah ya, hari ini apa ya BGM ya? Apa kita coba Kalavina aja, tapi Kalavina dikit sih lagunya. BGM Music Box Kalavina karena atau TM Revolution? Kalavina aja kali ya, nggak apa-apa lah ya diulang-ulang. Nggak terlalu dikit sih, ini lumayan. Cotto ne. Kayak gini kegedean nggak ya? Oh ya ini volumenya kekecilan lagi. Cotto. Segini kali ya? Kecilin dikit lagi karena ya udahlah segini aja lah ya. Pas kali ya kalau segini mah. Tapi ada kenapa mic-nya terus-terusan bunyi ya? Halo Jordan, halo. Apa? Hotaru dibajak. Bentar. Kalian lagi di lokasi yang sama kah? Halo Jordan. Kekecilan. Apa yang kekecilan? Suaraku kah? Apa yang kekecilan? Apakah apa ininya ya? Kita mata. Mana ya? Kekecilan suara musiknya. Hai. Cotto matte. Kore kana? Kalau segini pas kah? Kalau buka ininya dulu deh kalau gitu. Kalau buka readernya dulu. Hehehe. Mana ya? Halo, Colabanwaa. Dikit lagi, gedein lagi. Cotto matte. Nah ya. Segini kan? Segini kali ya, udah lah ya. Nah, mana ya? Oke, let's go. Ayo kita baca. Mana? Hai. Oke, OTW. Suara Kakola higher volume. Ya ini playlistnya Kalavina. Hehehe. Oke, saatnya kita baca. Ups, salah halaman ya. Kalau itu ini ya. Oke, kita sekarang lanjut part 2, yaitu The Red-Headed League. Liga Kepala Merah. Kepala Merah tuh Red-Head tuh biasanya nge-refer ke itu, ngerujuk ke yang rambutnya merah, atau kita ya si Ron Weasley kalau di Harry Potter. Terus siapa lagi ya? Ya keluarga Weasley itu Red-Head hitungannya. Apa ini? Apakah koneksi kola putus? Oh, it's okay, right? Takutnya koneksi Kola error lagi. Ya, semoga tidak. Suka na. Hai. Gimana ya ceknya ya? Patah-patah kah? Wah. Hai. Oke. Nampaknya sudah oke. Saatnya kita lanjut baca. Jadi syahdu. Iya dong, kita kan mau baca cerita. Oke. Part 2, The Red-Headed League. Oh ya, untuk yang baru join, ini kita ngebaca ceritanya Adventure of Sherlock Holmes. Petualangan Sherlock Holmes. Jadi Kola bakalan bacain bahasa Inggrisnya dulu, terus Kola semacam recap dalam bahasa Indonesia ya, sambil komen-komenin. Kalian juga silahkan komen kalau di chatbox. Hehe. I had called upon my friend, Mr. Sherlock Holmes, one day in the autumn of last year and found him in deep conversation with a very stout, florid-faced, elderly gentleman with fiery red hair. With an apology for my intrusion, I was about to withdraw when Holmes pulled me abruptly into the room and closed the door behind me. You could not possibly have come at a better time, my dear Watson, he said cordially. I was afraid that you were engaged, so I am, very much so, and I can wait in the next room. Not at all. This gentleman, Mr. Wilson, has been my partner and helper in many of my most successful cases, and I have no doubt that he will be of the utmost use to me in yours also. Bentar, kenapa namanya Mr. Wilson? Wilson ini soalnya adalah nama, kalau kalian pernah nonton movie Castaway, movie yang ceritanya adalah orang terlantar di sebuah pulau sendirian dan jadi kayak hidup balik primitif untuk bertahan hidup sampai dia balik lagi ke kota. Itu dia teman satu-satunya itu adalah bola yang dia namai Wilson. Tapi kan ini aturan temannya Sherlock Holmes itu Mr. Watson kan? Kenapa jadi Mr. Wilson? Apakah ini kesalahan scanning waktu bukunya diarsipin? Interesting. Okay. Atau mungkin Holmes lupa aja kali ya. The stout gentleman half rose from his chair and gave a bob of greeting, with a quick little questioning glance from his small, fat-encircled eyes. Try this tea, said Holmes, relapsing to his armchair and putting his fingertips together, as was his custom when in judicial moods. I know, my dear Watson, that you share my love of all that is bizarre and outside the conventions and humdrum routine of everyday life. You have shown your relish for it by the enthusiasm which has prompted you to chronicle, and if you will excuse my saying so, somewhat to embellish so many of my own little adventures. Your cases have indeed been one of the greatest interest to me, I observed. You'll remember that I remarked the other day, just before we went into the very simple problem presented by Miss Mary Sutherland, that for strange effects and extraordinary combinations, we must go to life itself, which is always far more daring than any effort of the imagination. A proposition which I took the liberty of doubting. You did, Doctor, but nonetheless, you must come round to my view, for otherwise I shall keep on piling fact upon fact on you until your reason breaks down, understands and acknowledges me to be right. Now, Mr. J.B. Wilson here has been good enough to call upon me this morning, and to begin a narrative which promises to be one of the most singular which I have listened to for some time. You have heard me remark that the strangest and most unique things are very often connected not with the larger but with the smaller crimes, and occasionally, indeed, where there is room for doubt whether an inquisitive crime has been committed. Jadi yang dibahas ini itu adalah Wilson. Jadi Wilson tuh bukan Holmes yang salah baca. Kalau itu Watson, ini Wilson. Jadi kayaknya klien ini udah sering ngebantu si Holmes. Was similar. Dan Holmes menemukan kasus ini menarik seperti biasanya, as always. wait, tadi lo bilang Watson apa Holmes? Ya, Holmes. Watson biasanya dia chill, dia tidak apa namanya, sepecicilan Holmes. Aduh, Sherlock Holmes gue bilang pecicilan, aduh payah ya. Mana ya? Jadi apakah kasus kali ini? Oke. As far as I have heard, it is impossible for me to say whether the present case is an instance of crime or not. But the course of events is certainly among the most singular that I have ever listened to. Perhaps, Mr. Wilson, you will have the great kindness to commence your narrative. I ask you not merely because my friend Dr. Watson has not heard the opening part, but also because the peculiar nature of the story makes me anxious to have every possible detail from your lips. As a rule, when I have heard some slight indication of the course of events, I am able to guide myself by the thousands of other similar cases which occur to my memory. In the present instance, I am forced to admit that the facts are, to the best of my belief, unique. Ya, jadi kasusnya ini, ya kayak tadi Kolam bilang, Holmes menemukan kasus ini unik. Tapi si Watson ini nyampe ke ruangan mereka ini, ngedengerin mereka ngobrol ini, waktu udah setengah jalan si Mr. Wilson ini cerita ke Holmes. Jadi Holmes minta biar diceritain lagi ke si Watson. Ya karena juga si Holmes tertarik sama detail kasusnya sih, makanya dia minta diceritain ulang. The portly client puffed out his chest with an appearance of some little pride and pulled a dirty and wrinkled newspaper from the inside pocket of his great coat. As he glanced down the advertisement column, with his head thrust forward and the paper flattened out upon his knee, I took a good look at the man and endeavored, after the fashion of my companion, to read the indications which might be presented by his dress or appearance. Jadi si Watson ini nungguin. Biasanya kan Holmes itu kalau misalnya ada klien, dia kayak mengobservasi gitu, kayak mengamati siapa sih nih klien, kayak ada insight apa aja sih tentang si klien ini. Si klien ini apa backgroundnya gitu kan, dilihat dari perilaku si klien atau kayak apakah bajunya ataukah detail-detail di penampilannya gitu. Tapi ternyata si Holmes lagi nggak ngomongin soal itu gitu. Tumben-tumbenan dia diem gitu kan. Sementara si kliennya ini dia kayak ngeluarin koran gitu kan, terus diratain sambil disenderin ke dengkul gitu. I did not gain very much, however, by my inspection. Our visitor bore every mark of being an average, commonplace British tradesman, obese, composed, and slow. He wore rather baggy grey shepherd's check trousers, a not overclean black frock coat, unbuttoned in the front, and a drab waistcoat with a heavy brassy elbow chain, and a square pierced bit of metal dangling down as an ornament. A frayed top hat and a faded brown overcoat with a wrinkled velvet collar lay up on a chair beside him. Altogether, look as I would, there was nothing remarkable about the man save his blazing red hat, and the expression of extreme chagrin and discontent upon his features. Jadi si klien yang kali ini, kalau dari pengamatannya Watson, itu tuh kayak tipikal gentleman orang Inggris biasa gitu loh. Yang kita balik lagi. Kalau menurut Watson yang gentleman biasanya orang Inggris itu adalah tradesman itu adalah kayak apa ya? Saudagar, pedagang gitu. Jadi ngeliatnya nih klien kayaknya pedagang atau saudagar. Tapi menurut dia tuh standarnya orang Inggris kalau saudagar tuh kayak obesitas, composed, and slow gitu, kayak agak sedikit arogan, terus kayak dia tuh kayak lelet gitu. Sungguh si Watson ini judgmental juga ya. Oke, let's go back. Nah, tapi tampilannya ini tuh kayak normal-normal aja gitu, nggak ada yang aneh kecuali rambutnya yang merah kalau menurut Watson. Okay. Sherlock Holmes, quick eye, took in my occupation, and he shook his head with a smile as he noticed my questioning glances. Beyond the obvious facts that he has at some time done manual labor, that he takes snuff, that he is a Freemason, that he has been in China, and that he has done a considerable amount of writing lately, I can deduce nothing else. Mr. J.B. Wilson started up in his chair, with his forefinger upon the paper, but his eyes upon my companion. "How in the name of good fortune did you know all that, Mr. Holmes?" he asked. "How did you know, for example, that I did manual labor? It's as true as gospel, for I began as a ship's carpenter. Your hands, my dear sir." Oh, it's not sir, it's sir. At that time, it's sir. "Your hands, my dear sir. Your right hand is quite a size larger than your left. You have worked with it, and the muscles are more developed." "Well, the snuff then, and the Freemasonry? I won't insult your intelligence by telling you how I read that, especially as rather against the strict rules of your author. You use an arc and compass breastpin. Oh, of course, I forgot that. But the writing? What else can be indicated by that right cuff, so very shiny for 5 inches, and the left one with a smooth patch near the elbow where you rested upon the desk?" "Well, but China, the fish that you have tattooed immediately above your right wrist could only have been done in China. I have made a small study of tattoo marks, and have even contributed to the literature of the subject. That trick of staining the fish's scales of a delicate pink is quite peculiar to China. When in addition I see a Chinese coin hanging from your watch chain, the matter becomes even more simple." Oke, kita baca dulu, kita recap dulu ini apa yang kejadian, baru nanti kalau bakalan bacain chatbox. Jadi setelah udah udah diobserv sama si Holmes ini, menurut Holmes itu si klien ini orangnya sudah melakukan manual labor. Itu tapi waktu ditanya kenapa, soalnya emang ternyata si kliennya emang pernah manual labor itu kayak kerja kasar. Ternyata si kliennya emang pernah kerja kasar jadi tukang kayu di kapal gitu, tukang kayu kapal gitu loh. Nah, kenapa si Holmesnya tahu? Karena tangannya katanya lebih gede salah satunya. Jadi kalau Kola mikirnya gini, mungkin itu maksudnya mengindikasikan bahwa karena dia suka, biasanya kalau kerja kasar itu kan tangan dominan itu kan banyak kerjanya, banyak main otot gitu kan. Jadi pertumbuhan tangannya lebih gede di satu sisi gitu. Nah, dari situ makanya si Holmes tahu dia pernah manual labor. Terus soal snuff and Freemasonry, Kola juga agak lupa sih snuff-nya apa. Tapi kalau Freemasonry itu kayak sebenarnya terlepas teori-teori konspirasi, sebenarnya untuk di masa itu Freemasonry itu lebih kayak organisasi untuk untuk kayak pembangunan organisasi progresif gitu basically. Kayak pembangunan peradaban dan semacamnya dan sains. Cuma emang waktu di teori konspirasi biasanya jeleknya itu karena mereka itu seringkali berhadap-hadapan sama gereja. Makanya mereka suka dianggap kayak ya ada yang agnostik lah atau apa gitu kan. Tapi basically Freemasonry itu organisasi yang cenderung mengedepankan sains gitu. Nah, makanya di sini Holmes bilang, "Aku tidak berniat untuk menghina kecerdasanmu dengan ngasih tahu gimana aku tahu kalau kamu itu dari Freemasonry." Tapi basically si Holmes ini tahu dia itu dari anggota Freemasonry itu adalah dari pin, dari bros yang dipakai sama si klien ini gitu. There's nothing. Nah, ini udah. Oh wait. Yang ini udah. Terus yang bagian sini soal writing, dari mana dia tahu bahwa si klien ini adalah penulis adalah karena karena lengan bajunya itu mulus sampai di daerah yang dia biasa senderin ke arah meja. Kalau misalnya kita lagi nulis kan sikunya ditaruh ke meja gitu kan. Daerah situ yang nggak mulus gitu loh. Terus soal China, karena dia pakai tato ikan, dan tato ikannya ini cara penggambaran dan cara coloringnya itu unik sama daerah China gitu. Oke, saatnya kita cek chat box. Oke. Maybe we can talk about Harry Potter someday. Well, maybe we can. Tapi mungkin tuh kayaknya free talk. Kalau kayaknya nggak bakalan bisa bacain Harry Potter soalnya Hak ciptanya masih langgeng, masih belum belum apa ya namanya, belum tuntas, apa belum hangus. Hak ciptanya Harry Potter masih berlanjut soalnya, jadi nggak bisa sembarangan dibacain. Tapi kalau soal kayak fandomnya atau kayak ceritanya, mungkin kapan-kapan kita juga bisa cerita. Tapi kalau mungkin ya mesti recap dulu dikit-dikit. Hehe. Hmm. Hehe. Oke, kayak kita lanjut lagi. Hmm. Hmm. Ah. When in addition, I see. Oh ya, ya ini dah. Mr. Wilson laughed heavily. Well, I never, said he. I thought at first that she had done something clever, but I see that there was nothing in it after all. Songong juga ini klien. I begin to think, Watson, said Holmes, that I make a mistake in explaining. Omne notum pro magnifico, you know. And my poor little reputation, such as it is, will suffer shipwreck if I am so candid. Can you not find the advertisement, Mr. Wilson? Yes, I've got it now, he answered with his thick red finger planted halfway down the column. Here it is. This is what began it all. You just read it for yourself, sir. I took the paper from him and read as follows. To the Red-Headed League, on account of the bequest of the late Hezekiah Hopkins of Lebanon, Pennsylvania, USA, there is now another vacancy open which entitles a member of the League to a salary of £4 a week for purely nominal services. All red-headed men who are sound in body and mind and above the age of 21 years are eligible. Apply in person on Monday at 11 o'clock. To Duncan Ross, at the offices of the League, 7 Pope's Court, Fleet Street. What on earth does this mean? I ejaculated after I had twice read over the extraordinary announcement. Holmes chuckled and wriggled in his chair, as was his habit when in high spirits. It is a little off the beaten track, isn't it? Said he. And now, Mr. Wilson, off you go scratch and tell us all about yourself, your household, and the effect which this advertisement had upon your fortunes. You will first make a note, doctor, of the paper and the date. Apa ini? Oh, nggak open public kayak Sherlock. Hai sayang. Hai Reina. Halo, welcome to my stream. Nggak open public kayak Sherlock, karena authornya masih hidup, jadi kayak masih bayar royalty. Biasanya karya itu jadi public domain hak ciptanya kalau biasanya autornya udah meninggal dan kayak udah berapa puluh tahun gitu setelah autornya meninggal, atau kayak udah nggak digubah lagi karyanya, baru nanti bakalan hak ciptanya bebas untuk ditayangkan. Makanya kayak movie-movie sekarang maupun kayak cerita-cerita sekarang banyak yang diambil dari cerita lama gitu, karena more or less free royalty atau nggak murah royaltinya dibanding karya-karya yang baru yang authornya masih hidup dan masih ngubah karyanya. Basically kalau aku asal ngebacain buku gitu di stream ini, terutama kalau misalnya viewer udah banyak, aku bakalan kena strike copyright, karena sebenarnya nggak boleh asal ngebaca buku di stream kalau misalnya bukan public domain. Okay, let's go again. It is the Morning Chronicle of April 27th, 1890, just 2 months ago. Very good. Now, Mr. Wilson. Well, it is just as I have been telling you, Mr. Sherlock Holmes, said Jabez Wilson. Jabez? Mopping his forehead. I have a small pawnbroker's business at Cupboard Square near the city. It's not a very large affair, and of late years it has not done more than just give me a living. I used to be able to keep 2 assistants, but now I only keep 1, and I will have a job to pay him, but that he is willing to come for half wages so as to learn the business. What is the name of this obliging youth? asked Sherlock Holmes. His name is Vincent Spaulding. Vincent? I'm familiar with that name. And he's not such a youth either. It's hard to say his age. I should not wish a smarter assistant, Mr. Holmes, and I know very well that he could better himself and earn twice what I am able to give him. But after all, if he is satisfied, why should I put ideas in his head? Why indeed? Is he most fortunate in having an employee who comes under the full market price? It is not a common experience among employers in this age. I don't know that your assistant is not as remarkable as your advertisement. Oh, he has his faults too, said Mr. Wilson. Never was such a fellow for photography, snapping away with a camera when he ought to be improving his mind and then diving down into the cellar like a rabbit into its hole to develop his pictures. That is his main fault, but on the whole, he's a good worker. There's no vice in him. Jadi kasusnya ini adalah kayaknya karena si Mr. Wilson itu kayak menemukan vacancy. Terus dia punya kayak karyawan, tapi karyawannya ini sebenarnya pintar, kayak lebih pintar, tapi kayaknya dia nggak mau bayar lebih gitu loh. Kayak sebenarnya si karyawan ini layak dibayar lebih karena sangat kompeten sebenarnya. Walang dia itu punya hobi fotografi, terus kayak dia suka tahu-tahu ngilang kayak ke lubang kelinci buat kayak ngedevelop foto. Kayak develop foto tuh apa ya? Kalau zaman dulu mungkin cuci foto. Jadi kalau misalnya kita mau pakai kamera analog sama roll film kan untuk gambar keluar harus dicuci dulu pakai cairan. Yang kita nyebutnya cairan developer kayaknya. Nah, dia sebenarnya asisten biasa. Fotografi itu kayak cuma hobinya gitu kan. Jadi kayak si Mr. Wilson ini sebenarnya agak nggak suka karena dengan hobinya dia itu gitu. Kayak aturan daripada dia hobi fotografi, dia mah aturan naikin skill dia aja untuk jadi asistennya Mr. Wilson gitu. Tapi in the same time, walaupun si asisten ini sangat kompeten, Mr. Wilson juga nggak mau bayar mahal-mahal. Dia kayak ya segitu aja, walaupun kalau kata dia sih sebenarnya itu asisten layak dibayar 2 kali lipat. Okay. Ya kita lanjut. He's still with you, I presume? Yes, sir. Ian, a girl of 14 who does a bit of simple cooking and keeps the place clean. That's all I have in the house, for I am a widower and never had any family. We live very quietly, sir, the 3 of us, and we keep a roof over our heads and pay our debts if we do nothing more. Jadi si klien ini dia hidupnya bertiga, sama si siapa ya ini teh, sama si asisten tadi, sama satu lagi anak perempuan yang umurnya 14 tahun yang ngurusin bersih-bersih sama masak-masak. Ya kalau untuk masa itu kayaknya 14 tahun itu udah hitungannya legal age kali ya kalau untuk bekerja. Paling kalau hitungannya kalau misalnya ya semacam asisten rumah tangga gitu ya. Oke, kita lihat. Oh ada chat lagi. Oh no, jangan kenapa Alexei? Reina ngapain kalian kak? Halo sekolah, halo Moya, welcome to my stream. Di sini kita lagi baca The Adventure of Sherlock Holmes. Hitung-hitung kalau juga latihan bahasa Inggris. Okay. The first thing that put us out was that advertisement. Spaulding, he came down into the office just to stay 8 weeks, with his fairy paper in his hand, and he says, I wish to the Lord, Mr. Wilson, that I was a red-headed man. Why that? I ask. Why? Says he, here's another vacancy on the League of the Red-Headed Man. It's worth quite a little fortune to any man who gets it, and I understand that there are more vacancies than there are men, so that the trustees are at their wits' end what to do with the money. If my hair will only change color, here's a nice little crib all ready for me to step into. Jadi waktu tiba-tiba tuh asistennya itu datang ke dia ngasih iklan itu, dan dia kayak aku harap rambutku ini merah gitu, soalnya digaji banyak. Sementara dari yang pekerjaan yang dari red-headed man, League of the Red-Headed Man ini pekerjaannya banyak, tapi yang nge-apply-nya sebenarnya sedikit, sementara uang yang udah ready-nya juga banyak. Makanya si asistennya kayak tertarik, kayaknya mungkin aku bisa apply kali ya, dan semacam itu gitu. Why? What is it then? I asked. You see, Mr. Holmes, I am a very stay-at-home man, and as my business came to me instead of my having to go to it, I was often weeks on end without putting my foot over the doormat. In that way, I didn't know much of what was going on outside, and I was always glad of a bit of news. Have you never heard of the League of the Red-Headed Men? He asked with his eyes open. Never. Why, I wonder at that, for you're eligible yourself for one of the vacancies. And what are they worth? I asked. Oh, merely a couple of hundred a year, but the work is light and it need not interfere very much with one's other occupations. Jadi kayak si kliennya itu jarang keluar rumah, jadi bisnisnya dia itu biasanya kayak nggak terlalu perlu dia keluar gitu, biasanya bisnisnya yang hantirin dia. Nah, dia juga bingung, ini kayak nanya ke si Holmes sama Watson, apakah kalian nggak pernah dengar soal si League of the Red-Headed Man gitu kan. Soalnya kayak sebenarnya Watson sama Holmes juga eligible gitu kalau misalnya mereka mau ikut kerja di situ. Tapi ya biasalah, Holmes nggak tertarik gitu kan, ya mereka nggak gitu tertarik, mereka juga mungkin baru tahu gitu. Kalau katanya si klien ini sih bayarannya lumayan, kayak ya cuma 100 pound sterling a year setahun, tapi kerjanya itu ya kecil, terus kayak kalau punya kerjaan lain juga nggak mengganggu, jadi kayak bisa dijadiin part time gitu, bisa dijadiin kerjaan sampingan, pendapatan sampingan gitu. Well, you can easily think that made me prick up my ears, for the business has not been over good for some years, and an extra couple of hundred will have been very handy. Nah, ya gitulah, jadi katanya bisnis si kliennya ini nggak baik. Ya belakangan ini nggak terlalu laku lah, nggak terlalu banyak pendapatan, makanya dia pengen nyari kerjaan sampingan dari yang ditawarin Red-Headed League ini. Tell me all about it, said I. Well, said he, showing me the advertisement, you can see for yourself that the league has a vacancy. And there is the address where you should apply for particulars. As far as I can make out, the league was founded by an American millionaire. Izakaya Hopkins was very peculiar in his ways. He was himself red-headed, and he had a great sympathy for all red-headed men. So when he died, it was found that he had left his enormous fortune in the hands of trustees, with instructions to apply the interest to the providing of easy berths to men whose hair is of that color. From all I hear, it is splendid pay and very little to do. Jadi yang ngediriin Red-Headed League ini adalah seorang bilioner Amerika namanya Izakaya Hopkins. Nah, dia tuh kaya banget. Tapi dia juga sangat bersimpati dengan orang yang sama seperti dia, berambut merah. Makanya waktu dia meninggal, waktu dia meninggal, dia ngasih arahan untuk biar uangnya itu dikasih ke orang-orang, atau setidaknya dialokasikan untuk kehidupan orang-orang yang berambut merah juga seperti dia. Kalau mikir sih ini mungkin ada hubungannya dengan witch hunt yang dulu kayaknya. Dulu kan ada perburuan penyihir yang mana banyak yang disangka penyihir itu yang orang rambut merah. Jadi mungkin ya walaupun era penyihir udah lewat, kayaknya kayak stigma itu kayak bertahan lama kan. Jadi mungkin si Izakaya ini juga kayak semacam ya bersimpati lah gitu ya, sama-sama melewati kesulitan kan, melewati stigma gitu, dijudge sama orang-orang sekitarnya karena rambut merah mungkin. Kalau mikirnya kayak gitu. Okay, ya. Okay, it doesn't seem there was any new chats. Let's go. But, said I, there will be millions of red-headed men who will apply. Not so many as you might think, he answered. You see, it is really confined to Londoners and to ground men. This American had started from London when he was young, and he wanted to do the old town a good turn. Then again, I have heard it is no use your applying if your hair is light red or dark red or anything but real bright, blazing, fiery red. Now, if you care to apply, Mr. Wilson, you will just walk in, but perhaps it will hardly be worth your while to put yourself out of the way for the sake of a few £100. Hmm, jadi kayak mereka ngira kayak banyak kan yang aturan bakalan nge-apply ini, tapi ternyata enggak juga. Jadi yang mereka terima itu enggak sembarangan orang rambutnya rambut merah, tapi simply orang yang orang cuma untuk orang London yang berambut merah. Terus ya karena siapa si miliuner ini juga dulunya mulai hidupnya di London. Terus ya siapa namanya yang diterima juga bukan sembarang rambut merah kayak merah tua atau cuma merahnya dikit, tapi harus yang rambutnya merah itu merah bergelora, bukan bergelora, merah yang membara gitu, warna merah keoranyean yang sangat ya warnanya nyala banget, neon gitu. Okay. Oh punten, halo Mine, welcome to my stream. Apa ini? Now it is a fact, gentlemen, as you may see for yourselves, that my hair is of a very full and rich tint, so that it seemed to me that if there was to be any competition in the matter, I stood as good a chance as any man that I had ever met. Vincent Spaulding seemed to know so much about it that I thought he might prove useful, so I just ordered him to put up the shutters for the day and to come right away with me. He was very willing to have a holiday, so we shut the business up and started off for the address that was given us in the advertisement. I never hoped to see such a sight as that again, Mr. Holmes. From north, south, east, and west, every man who had a shade of red in his hair had tramped into the city to answer the advertisement. Fleet Street was choked with red-headed folk, and Pope's Court looked like a coster's orange barrow. I should not have thought there were so many in the whole country as were brought together by that single advertisement. Every shade of colour they were straw, lemon, orange brick, Irish setter, leather, clay, but as Spaulding said, there were not many who had the real vivid, plain coloured tint. When I saw how many were waiting, I would have given it up in despair, but Spaulding would not hear of it. How he did it I could not imagine, but he pushed and pulled and bumped until he got me through the crowd and right up to the steps which led to the office. There was a double stream up on the stair, some going up in hope and some coming back dejected, but we wedged in as well as we could and soon found ourselves in the office. Jadi si Vincent ini yang kalau nggak salah Vincent ini asistannya ya, itu kayak bukan nemenin sih, tapi kayak ngebujuk dia buat datang gitu kan. Dan waktu dia datang ke tempatnya itu semua orang yang rambutnya merah, kayak semua shade-nya itu ngumpul sampai dia kayak aduh nggak mau lagi deh lihat ini, kayak banyak banget. Dia nggak nyangka ada sebanyak itu orang yang rambutnya merah di negerinya dia gitu. Nah awalnya itu kayak dia udah kayak mau mundur gitu kan, udah kayak malas. Cuma kayak si Vincentnya akhirnya kayak ya nerobos tarik ya, geser gitu kan. Akhirnya mereka nyampe dia antrian yang agak depanan lah gitu intinya. Itu tuh udah ada kayak dua barisan, satu yang lagi ngantri masuk di tes, satu lagi yang turun tertolak, kelihatan mukanya habis ditolak kerjaan gitu. Let's see what happens next. Kepencet. Okay. Your experience has been a most entertaining one, remarked Holmes as his client paused and refreshed his memory with a huge pinch of snuff. Pray continue your very interesting statement. Katanya pengalamannya menarik. Sungguh ya Holmes nih sarkas sekali. Baik, oke. Bentar. Kalau penasaran snuff itu apa ya? Kalau juga lupa. Kemarin juga ada kata bijou. Mungkin selanjutnya kalau mungkin harus ngedata kayak kosakata baru biar kita belajar bareng. Let's see what is what. Oh shoot. Kayaknya browser Cola agak nge-freeze. Oh no. Oh, bentar. Cola kasihkan baca ini. Cola kasihkan baca, Cola lupa BGM-nya mati ya. BGM-nya udah selesai. Oke, saatnya kita ulang lagi. Kita loop. Oke. Anyway, tadi kalau udah nyari. Jadi kata snuff itu adalah apa namanya? Rokok, tabako. It's tobacco. Sementara kalau yang kemarin kalau nemuin katanya adalah bijo. What is bijo? Kita coba dengar seperti apa kan dibacanya.
Bijou.
Oh, biju, bacanya biju. Biju apa namanya? Especially of a house or flat, small and elegant. Rumah yang kecil dan elegan. Atau enggak, a jewel or trinket. Atau enggak perhiasan kecil. Jadi pokoknya indah-indah tapi kecil-kecil gitu. Bisa rumah, bisa perhiasan. Alright. Saatnya kita putar lagi BGM-nya. Nah. Anyway, who's still here? Kola is curious. Say hi to Kola. Oh, tapi kalau yang baru masuk, Colabanwaa everyone. Jangan lupa makan. Bisa kok makan sambil dengerin Kola. Hehe. Oke, saatnya kita lanjut. Mana ya? Ups, kepencet lagi. Oh, that's okay. There was nothing in the office but a couple of wooden chairs and a deal table, behind which sat a small man with a head that was even rather than mine. He said a few words to each candidate as he came up, and then he always managed to find some fault in them, which will disqualify them. Getting a vacancy didn't seem to be such a very easy matter after all. However, when our turn came, the little man was much more preferable to me than to any of the others, and he closed the door as we entered, so that he might have a private word with us. Jadi di dalam itu ada bapak-bapak yang badannya posturnya agak kecil gitu kan, yang kelihatan kayak tiap kali ada orang yang lagi dites tuh kayak selalu aja nemuin kayak, oh ini tuh ada salahnya, ini ada salahnya, jadi pokoknya nggak diterima. Nah dari situ si klien ini ngerasa ternyata kayaknya ya namanya nyari pekerjaan nggak bakal gampang juga ya. Tapi ternyata waktu si orang yang ngetes ini ngeliat si kliennya, katanya dia di treat lebih favorable. Lebih favorable tuh apa ya? Lebih dengan di treat dengan lebih baik gitu. Kayak diramah-tamahin dibanding sama yang applicant ya, pelamar-pelamar yang lain gitu. Oke. Terus kayak mereka diajak mereka diajak ke ruangan, terus pintunya ditutup, terus mereka diajak ngomong private. This is Mr. Chabe Wilson, said my assistant, and he is willing to fill a vacancy in the league. And he is admirably suited for it, the other answered. He has every requirement. I cannot recall when I have seen anything so fine. He took a step backward, cocked his side on one side, and gazed at my hair until I felt quite bashful. Then suddenly he plunged forward, wrung my hand, and congratulated me warmly on my success. Aduh, kagok juga ya. Jadi waktu diperkenalin ini, si kliennya diperkenalin ke yang ngetesnya ini, tahu-tahu dia dibilang katanya sudah memenuhi semua syarat-syarat, entah syarat apaan gitu. Terus tahu-tahu udah kayak langsung bukan ditodong sih, kayak bukan serbu kayak kalau kalian tiba-tiba meluk orang gitu, diselamatin, diajak salaman segala macam. It will be injustice to his state, said he. You will, however, I am sure, excuse me for taking an obvious precaution. With that, he seized my hair in both his hands and tugged until I yelped with the pain. There is water in your eyes, said he as he released me. I perceive that all is as it should be, but we have to be careful, for we have twice been deceived by wigs and once by paint. Oh, jadi dia diremes-remes gitu badannya sama kepalanya, tarik-tarikin ya. Ternyata yang pelamar yang lain tuh banyak yang pakai wig gitu untuk biar diterima di red-headed league itu, untuk diterima di pekerjaan di Red Hat itu kayak gitu. Terus dia ngecat rambut juga. Kalau penasaran, cat rambut di masa itu kayak gimana ya? I could tell you tales of cobbler's wax, which will disgust you with human nature. Ada yang pakai cobbler's wax. Aku lupa cobbler itu apa ya? Pakai wax, tapi kayak it sounds gross. Kedengarannya menjijikkan. Cuma untuk ngecat rambut jadi merah gitu, biar bisa diterima di sini. He stepped over to the window and shouted through it at the top of his voice that the vacancy was filled. A groan of disappointment came up from below, and the folk all trooped away in different directions until there was not a red hat to be seen, except my own and that of the manager. My name, said he, is Mr. Duncan Ross, and I am myself one of the pensioners upon the fund left by our noble benefactor. Are you a married man, Mr. Wilson? Have you a family? I answered that I had not. His face fell immediately. Dear me, he said gravely, that is very serious indeed. I am sorry to hear you say that. The fund was, of course, for the propagation and spread of the red hats as well as for their maintenance. It is exceedingly unfortunate that you should be a bachelor. Jadi diperkenalkan bahwa orang yang tadi ngetes itu adalah manajernya The Red Hat League, namanya Pak Duncan Ross. Itu kayak pensiunan dari dana yang ditinggalkan oleh si dermawan, si Izakaya Hopkins ini. Nah, terus dia ditanyain kan si kliennya ini udah punya keluarga kah? Apa hidup sama orang kah gitu kan? Si klien ini kan belum punya keluarga, dia kan hidupnya tadi kayak cuma sama si asistennya, sama kayak ART-nya yang cewek 14 tahun. Katanya karena itu ya si Duncan Ross-nya ya mukanya sedih, kecewa gitu. Sayang sekali gitu kan gitu. Saya kayak sedih gitu ngedengar ya, karena kan aturan ini dana itu untuk kayak ya biasa kayak menyebarkan orang-orang berambut merah gitu, termasuk untuk merawat orang-orang berambut merah yang ada di London gitu. Makanya dia sedih, si bapak ini masih bukan perjaka tapi kayak masih single gitu. Dia berharap bahwa yang aplikan ini udah punya keluarga sebenarnya. Kalian demen juga ya? Bentar refresh dulu, takutnya ada chat yang ketinggalan ini. Nah, anyway, mate. Nah, kayaknya emang gak ada yang ngechat lagi sih. Kayaknya enak aja cuma ngedengerin gitu ya. Alright. Okay. My face lengthened at this. Mr. Holmes piped out that I wasn't to have a vacancy after all. But after thinking it over for a few minutes, he said that it will be all right. In the case of another, said he, the objection might be fatal, but we must stretch a point in favor of a man with such a head of hair as yours. When shall you be able to enter upon your new duties? Well, it is a little awkward, for I have a business already, said I. Oh, never mind about that, Mr. Wilson, said Vincent Spaulding. I shall be able to look after that for you. What will be the hours? I asked. 10 to 2. Now, a pawnbroker's business is mostly done of an evening, Mr. Holmes, especially Thursday and Friday evening, which is just before payday, so it will suit me very well to earn a little in the mornings. Besides, I knew that my assistant was a good man, and that he would see to anything that turned up. Jadi katanya waktu dibilang waktu si manajer kecewa dia belum berkeluarga, dia kayak ngira kayaknya nggak bakal dapat nih pekerjaan ini, dia ikutan kecewa. Nah tapi ternyata nggak apa-apa juga gitu, karena rambutnya saking merahnya rambutnya gitu nggak apa-apa gitu. Saking merahnya rambutnya nggak apa-apa, bisa diakalin lah gitu kata manajernya. Terus ya dia cerita juga, dia juga sebenarnya udah ada bisnis, jadi mungkin jamnya agak bakal keganggu. Terus asistennya ini si Mr. Vincent Spaulding bilang katanya, oh nggak apa-apa, itu bisa saya urus gitu kata asistennya. Dia itu kerja dari jam 10 ke 2. Bentar, tapi ini nggak jelas nih, itu kerjaan dia atau waktu yang dia kasih ke si manajer untuk ketemuan. That would suit me very well, said I. And the pay is £4 a week, and the work is purely nominal. What do you call purely nominal? Well, you have to be in the office, or at least in the building the whole time. If you leave, you forfeit your whole position forever. The will is very clear upon that point. You don't comply with the conditions if you budge from the office during that time. It's only 4 hours a day, and I should not think of leaving, said I. No excuse will avail, said Mr. Duncan Ross. Neither sickness nor business nor anything else. There you must stay, or you lose your belay. And the work is to copy out the Encyclopedia Britannica. There's the first volume of it in that press. You must find your own ink, pens, and blotting paper, but we provide a table and chair. Will you be ready tomorrow? Certainly, I answered. Jadi kerjaan itu ya bayarannya 4 pound sterling seminggu. Ya kerjaannya wajib ada di kantor. Kalau misalnya dia pergi, kayak dia cabut waktu jam kerja itu, bakalan diasumsikan bahwa dia itu benar-benar melepas pekerjaannya, melepas posisinya yang baru diterima ini. Terus ditanya, kerjaannya apa? Oh, kerjanya emang purely kayaknya cuma nge-copy aja Encyclopedia Britannica gitu. Kayak ya kita cari alat tulis sendiri, dia disuruh cari alat tulis sendiri, terus tapi dia dikasih disediakan meja dan kursi gitu. Terus ini udah disanggupin kan, certainly katanya. Tentu saja, baiklah gitu. Then goodbye, Mr. J.B. Wilson, and let me congratulate you once more on the important position which you have been fortunate enough to gain. He bowed me out of the room, and I went home with my assistant, hardly knowing what to say or do. I was so pleased at my own good fortune. Habis itu diterima, dia langsung senang. Terus kayaknya nggak tahu mesti diapain lagi, dia langsung pulang gitu, kayak ya pulang dengan kesenangan gitu, baiknya udah diterima. Well, I thought over the matter all day, and by evening I was in low spirits again, for I had quite persuaded myself that the whole affair must be some great hoax or fraud. What its object might be I couldn't imagine. It seemed altogether past belief that anyone could make such a will, or that they would pay such a sum for doing anything so simple as copying out the Encyclopedia Britannica. Vincent Spaulding did what he could to cheer me up, but by bedtime I had reasoned myself out of the whole thing. However, in the morning, I determined to have a look at it anyhow. So I bought a penny bottle of ink, and with a quill pen and 7 sheets of foolscap paper, I started off for Pop's cart. Well, to my surprise and delight, everything was as right as possible. The table was set out ready for me, and Mr. Duncan Ross was there to see that I got fairly to work. He started me off upon the letter A, and then he left me, but he would drop in from time to time to see that all was right with me. At 2 o'clock he bade me good day, complimented me upon the amount that I had written, and locked the door for the office after me. Awalnya kayak ya dia kayak mikir kan, kayak apa ini namanya, kayak waktu awalnya kan dia seneng waktu balik udah diterima pekerjaannya, tapi waktu malam dia kayak sedih lagi, dipikir-pikir bisa jadi ini hoax atau penipuan gitu kan. Tapi maksudnya masa sih ada orang nyediain uang segini di ensiklopedia gitu kan gitu. Tapi si asistennya ini ngiyakinin dia, ini nggak mungkin kok, ini pasti beneran gitu. Akhirnya dia berniat lagi, udah kayak bertekad, oh ya udah deh aku mau ngerjain kerjaan ini nih, kerjaan sampingan ini, ngekopiin ensiklopedia di Red Headed League itu. Waktu dia besoknya mulai kerja, semuanya tuh kayak baik-baik aja gitu. mejanya udah siap, terus si manajer sananya si Duncan Ross itu ada di sana buat ngawasin dia nyampe tepat waktu gitu kan, terus kayak ngawasin dia kerja, terus udah kerja ya udah gitu kan. Pintunya dikunci buat setelah dia udah selesai kerja sama si Mr. Duncan gitu kan. This went on day after day. Bentar, cek chat box dulu kali ya. Kola, aku telat, nggak apa-apa Biagi. Halo Colabanwaa, apa kabar? Oke, kalau lanjut baca ya. This went on day after day, Mr. Holmes. And on Saturday, the manager came in and went down for golden sovereigns for my week's work. It was the same next week, and the same next week after. Every morning I was there at 10, and every afternoon I left at 2. By degrees, Mr. Duncan rose to coming in only once of a morning, and then after a time he didn't come in at all. Still, of course, I never dared to leave the room for an instant, for I wasn't sure when he might come, and the delay was such a good one and suited me so well that I would not risk the loss of it. Jadi kayak ya, setelah itu kayak terus-terusan kayak gitu. Kayak ya jam berapa tadi? Kalau salah jam 10 ya. Dia nyampe kerja jam 10, selesai jam 2 gitu kan. Kayak kadang-kadang si Mr. Duncan ini juga ngunjungin gitu. Kadang-kadang, tapi waktu udah lama pun dia tetap si kliennya Mr. Holmes ini yang kerja di Red Handed League nggak berani pergi juga gitu. Maksudnya dia nggak mau nggak mau resikonya dia dipecat gitu. Oh ya, apa ini? Baik, jangan lupa minum cola. Aduh iya, kebetulan banget ini udah kerasa aus nih, tenggorokan kayak panas dalam. Paling nanti cola minum deh. Ini part yang ini agak aneh sih soalnya. Kalau part yang satu itu kan kebagi kayak chapter 1, 2, 3 gitu kan. Cola ingat waktu itu cola minum waktu udah chapter 2 kayaknya. Waktu chapter 2 udah selesai gitu. Tapi yang ini somehow di PDF, di e-publications-nya, di terbitan yang cola download, yang versi public domain nggak ada tulisan chapter yang khusus yang part 2 ini. Atau jangan-jangan yang ada chapternya cuma yang part 1. Aku juga bingung sih, ya biarin lah ya. Apa ini? Oke. 8 weeks passed away like this, and I had written about abbots and archery and armor and architecture and Attica and hoped with diligence that I might get onto the beast before very long. It cost me something in foolscap, and I had pretty nearly filled a shelf with my writings, and then suddenly the whole business came to an end. To an end? Yes, sir. And later than this morning, I went to my work as usual at 10 o'clock, but the door was shut and locked, with a little square of cardboard hammered onto the middle of the panel with a tack. Here it is, and you can read for yourself. He held up a piece of white cardboard about the size of a sheet of notepaper. It read in this fashion: The Red Handed League is dissolved. October 9, 1890. Jadi si Mr. Duncan, si kliennya Mr. Holmes ini, si J.B. Wilson, kerja di Red Handed League itu udah berlanjut itu 8 minggu gitu kan. Dia udah ngerjain semua bagian ensiklopedia yang huruf A. Ya nggak semua sih ya, tapi kayak kebanyakan gitu kan. Udah yang huruf A tuh kayak edits, panahan, armor, arsitektur, Attica gitu kan. Udah ditulis gitu. Terus dia ngarep ya moga-moga cepet nyampe ke bagian B lah ensiklopedinya kan. Tapi tahu-tahu waktu dia mau pergi kerja, tahu-tahu ya udah, padahal dia udah ngerjain kayak satu rak gitu kan, satu rak penuh. Besoknya mau kerja, tahu-tahu ada tulisan bahwa kantornya dia itu dibubarin. The Red Handed League is dissolved. Nah, makanya dia bingung. Mungkin ini dia sebabnya ya, dia itu ke Sherlock Holmes itu buat ngurusin ini kali ya. Sherlock Holmes and I surveyed this curt announcement and the rueful face behind it until the comical side of the affair so completely overtopped every other consideration that we both burst out into a roar of laughter. Entah kenapa ini malah kasusnya diketawain. Aduh, ini memang ada Holmes sama Watson ya, kalian datang diketawain mulu, gimana sih? Contoh. I cannot see that there is anything very funny, cried our client, flashing up to the roots of his flaming head. If you can do nothing better than laugh at me, I can go elsewhere. Tuh kan, kliennya marah. Dia tersinggung. Kenapa? Kenapa kamu ketawa gitu? Kalau misalnya kamu ketawa, mendingan aku pergi tempat lain deh gitu katanya. Kan? Nakal sih kalian berdua. Oke. No, no, cried Holmes, shoving him back into the chair from which he had hovered. Gimana? Kayaknya didorong. Aduh, dasar nggak ada sopan santun dasar Holmes. From which he had half risen. I really will miss your case for the world. It is most refreshingly unusual. But there is, if you will excuse my saying so, something just a little funny about it. Pray, what steps did you take when you found the card upon the door? I was staggered, sir. I didn't know what to do, and I called at the officers round, but none of them seemed to know anything about it. Finally, I ran to the landlord, who is an accountant living on the ground floor, and I asked him if he could tell me what had become of the red-headed league. He said that he had never heard of any such body. What? Wait, it never exists? Okay. Then I asked him who Mr. Duncan Ross was. He answered that the name was new to him. What? Wait, was he scammed after all? Jadi kan awalnya diketawain sama Holmes, tapi terus ditanyain gitu kayak, ini situasinya gimana sih waktu kamu ketemu papan ini gitu? Ya si Wilson, Mr. Wilson ini kaget gitu kan, kayak dia nelpon ke sendawa dikit. Dia nelpon ke resepsionis, bukan resepsionis juga tapi kayak ke semacam call center kayak headquarter kantornya, nggak ada yang ngangkat. Akhirnya dia datang ke yang nyewain tempat kantornya dia yang tinggal di lantai 1, akuntan yang tinggal di lantai 1. Dia nanyain soal the red-headed league tempat dia kerja ini. Ternyata katanya nggak ada tuh nama gitu tuh baru gitu. Si yang punya tempatnya tuh kayak baru dengar itu tuh. Wah, ini kayaknya mencurigakan sekali ya. Oke. Nih, what? Hai cantik, udah maklum. Tadi udah. Waktu tuna lagi debut, aku udah makan sushi tuna. Walaupun ya bukan yang mahal-mahal, tapi it did the job, alright. Sama kalau juga minum taro, minum kayak minuman taro gitu kan. Rasa taro dan tuh agak ngenyangin juga. Halo, siapa yang pada baru datang? Colabanwaa everyone. Apa kabar semuanya? Oke, tadi udah nyampe mana ya? Oke. Oh ini nih. Well, said I, the gentleman at number 4. What? The red-headed man? Yes. Oh, said he. His name was William Morris. He was a solicitor and was using my room as a temporary convenience until his new premises were ready. He moved out yesterday. Where could I find him? Oh, at his new offices. He did tell me the address. Yes, 17 King Edward Street, near St. Paul's. I started off, Mr. Holmes, but when I got to that address, it was a manufactory of artificial kneecaps, and no one in it had ever heard of either Mr. William Morris or Mr. Duncan Ross. Namanya banyak banget. Jadi dia pakai nama samaran doang ya. ちょっとよ、これ何? And what did you do then? Asked Holmes. I went home to 6 Cumberland Square, and I took the advice of my assistant, but he couldn't help me in any way. He could only say that if I waited I should hear by post. But that wasn't quite good enough, Mr. Holmes. I didn't wish to lose such a place without a struggle, so as I had heard that you were good enough to give advice to poor folk who were in need of it, I came right away to you. Ya, kalau katanya si asisten dia aturan, tunggu disuratin gitu kan. Tapi nggak mau dia nggak mau kehilangan pekerjaan ini tanpa berjuang dulu. Makanya dia nanya ke Mr. Holmes dulu, katanya kan Is it still live? I'm not sure if it's still live. Guys, apakah ini masih live? Alamak, mobil sekolah. Mobil sekolah hilang dikit nih, mana ini? Contoh Mateo. Nande? Bentar ya. Kalau restart OBS dulu nggak apa-apa kali ya? Contoh Mateo. Apa nggak usah kali ya? Habis ini ada yang hilang. Kalau misalnya bisa tolong di restart ya. Iya. Ini leaderboardnya jadi error. Apa nggak usah dipakai leaderboard ya? Kalau misalnya kita restart OBS tuh ntar balik lagi nggak sih? Kalau misalnya kita restart OBS, apa hitam dulu ya? Kalau bingung soalnya. Biarin aja kali ya. Tadi kalian ingat kalau udah baca sampai mana? Waktu sebelum koneksinya putus? Nggak apa-apa sih, ini sambil kalau pasang lagu dulu deh. Memang dasar ini ISP 1 ini. Jadi sore emang kadang-kadang putus sih, tapi nggak tahu juga, bisa jadi karena laptop pola panas ya. Daijoubu desu ka? Hai. Tapi ini kalau masih bingung sih kayak, soalnya widget traktirnya gini lagi. Apakah harus di stop streaming dulu tuh, di exit dulu? Kayaknya mesti biasanya tuh kalau nggak kayak ngilang kayak gini mesti dibuka ulang gitu loh. Biasanya kalau misalnya kita berhentiin OBS dia hitam kah atau gimana? Coba mati karena atau nggak gini aja, kita tambahin ini aja. Sementara ini atasnya ditutup hal yang lain dulu aja kali ya. Let's see, what can we put in here? Should we put something? Taruh apa ya? Hehehe. Karena gak enak gitu ngeliat headline-nya kepotong dikit. Hehehe. Contohnya nanti kalau bakal lanjut lagi. Maksudnya nggak nanti sih. Sekarang juga langsung lanjut. Cuma kayak mau nutup dulu itu yang bolong-bolong di atas. I don't know what should we put in there. Oh no. Sebenarnya ini laptopnya kalau udah panas banget, tapi kalau pengen nyelesain satu part ini kayak kita baru jalan 60% dari ceritanya kayaknya. Mau tutup kana? Contohnya, where is it? I'm sure she placed it somewhere here. But covers. Is it? No. That's not it. Place it here. Wait, I know what I should put. Hehehe. How about we put Cola's PNG? I think I put it there. Hehehe. I think this is the first time you guys see it, I guess. Oh, but it is so big. Oh my god. Reina, how big do you make? How big did you made me? Oh my god. Oke, kita kecilin dulu pola emojinya. This is Kola emoji yang digambarin Reina. Buat Kola, isn't she cute? I'll place her here until the leaderboard comes back, which probably never. Kayak Kola takut. Kola takutnya kalau nutup OBS malah jadi makin error. Nanti Kola ntar buat next stream nanya deh kalau misalnya kejadian DC lagi kalau nutup OBS. bakal itu nggak ya, apa namanya, kalau untuk OBS bakal keputus nggak ya streamnya? Saya kalau kayak sebelumnya juga pernah DC, tapi kayak ya nggak parah-parah banget gitu. palingan langsung nyambung lagi kan. Ya terus itu aja lah ya. Ini kita panjangin. Oke. Ups. Hehehehe. Oke. Habisnya error mulu sih ini widgetnya traktirnya. Ya udah. Kayak gini lah ya. Tapi chatnya error kah? Iya ya. Kawaii kola? So desu ka? Cotto matte. Ini kayaknya emang chatnya harus dibenerin ya. Kok dia nggak mau itu sih? Yeah, I think my OBS crashed or something. I'm not really sure. Where is it? Mana ya? Gomen ne, kepotong gini baca-bacanya. Was it somewhere here? Yes. For some reason it just doesn't restart. Jadi ini chatnya kayak nggak mau ini. Kalau misalnya Kola ganti stream baru bisa nggak ya? Ganti stream baru aja ya. Hai Kola. Mama Reina yang bikinin. Lucu ya. Aku agak sedih sih soalnya kayak chatboxnya ini jadi nggak masuk. Atau Kola coba aja kali ya. Kola coba restart. Atau Kola coba cari dulu deh. Coba mate. Kalau masih nggak nemu jawabannya sih, tapi tadi aku udah nyoba refresh chatbox tapi kayak hello, is it right now? Hi. Wait. My one is still not moving. I'm not sure. Bisakah? Kelihatan kah? Halo yang baru datang, maaf tadi ada masalah koneksi. Terus kayak streamnya nge-lag. Tadi desktopnya Kola kelihatan kah? Sebenarnya nggak ada banyak hal juga sih di desktopnya Kola. Atau OBS gitu ya kalau misalnya di exit terus kayak di restart, waktu exitnya layar OBS-nya tetap nyala gitu ya. Iya udah normal lagi, kayaknya sekarang udah normal lagi. Hehehe. Tadi udah baca sampai mana ya? Kalau jadi lupa, jadi nggak fokus. Internetnya payah. Nggak tahu sih ini putus internetnya karena ISP-nya atau karena providernya kah? Makan mainan. Mana ini? Ya kita mulai ulang BGM-nya. Korek kana? Hai. Mana ya? Halo semuanya. Tadi kalau baca sampai mana ya? Aku agak lupa. Halo yang baru datang lagi. Maaf tadi busy pokoknya. Oke. Let's read again. Kalau bakalan ulangin yang pertama kali ya. Yang pertama enggak. Tadi sampai mana ya? Oh ya, oke. And you did very wisely, said Holmes. Your case is an exceedingly remarkable one, and I shall be happy to look into it. From what you have told me, I think that it is possible that graver issues hang from it than might at first sight appear. Grave enough, said Mr. J.B. Wilson. Why, I have lost £4 a week. As far as you are personally concerned, remarked Holmes, I do not see that you have any grievance against this extraordinary league. On the contrary, you are, as I understand, richer by some £30, to say nothing of the minute knowledge which you have gained on every subject which comes under the letter A. You have lost nothing by them. Jadi, kalau menurutnya Holmes, walaupun si kliennya ini merasa dirugikan, kayak wah aku tuh kehilangan 4 pound sterling seminggu. Menurut Holmes sih enggak, dia sebenarnya makin kaya 30 pound sterling gitu kan. Tuh lagian minggu-minggu ke depannya juga kan belum dia kerjain gitu kan. Itu kan baru kayak future plan gitu. Sementara selain dari 30 pound sterling yang udah dia dapatkan dari bayaran kerjanya juga, dia itu udah mendapatkan pengetahuan-pengetahuan yang dia raih waktu dia lagi ngebaca ensiklopedia. Kan dia kerjanya disuruh nge-copy ensiklopedia kan, manual zaman dulu mah. Nah, karena dia udah baca kayak itu, kayak dia tuh jadi serba tahu soal hal-hal yang awalannya A gitu. Jadi knowledgeable. No sir, but I want to find out about them, and who they are, and what their object was in playing this prank. If it was a prank upon me, it was a pretty expensive joke for them, and it cost them £32. We shall endeavor to clear up these points for you. And first, 1 or 2 questions. Mr. Wilson, this assistant of yours who first called your attention to the advertisement, how long had he been with you? About a month then. How did he come? In answer to an advertisement. Was he the only applicant? No, I had a dozen. Why did you pick him? Because he was handy and would come cheap. At half wages, in fact. Yes. What is he like, this Vincent Spaulding? Small, stout-built, very quick in his ways, no hair on his face, though he's not short of 30. He has a white splash of acid upon his forehead. I think I know where this is going. Kayaknya kalau tahu ini bakal kemana. Anyway, si klien itu walaupun ya oke lah, kalau misalnya Holmes bilang dia sebenarnya tetap ada untung gitu dari ini semua, kan dia udah dibayar juga kerjanya kan. Dia tetap aja penasaran, pengen tahu mereka tuh siapa, kayak mereka tuh tujuannya apa ngelakuin usil-usil kayak gini, kan mahal juga ngebayar dia berapa pound sterling kan. Nah, si Holmes ini akhirnya nanya, asisten kamu tuh si Vincent Spaulding penampilannya kayak mana gitu, build-nya kayak mana gitu kan. Ternyata dan datang ke dia itu gimana, ternyata Vincent Spaulding asisten dia ini juga datang ke dia berdasarkan iklan. Dia milih Vincent Spaulding ini karena pada dasarnya dia bisa bayar dia cuma setengah gaji orang yang lain. Penampilannya si Vincent ini kecil, stout build. Stout itu apa ya? Kayak semacam kenceng, apa ya? Mengkel kali ya mungkin istilahnya. Very quick in his ways, jadi kayak gercep orangnya. No hair on his face, nggak ada rambut di mukanya. Walaupun dia belum 30, walaupun 30 awal gitu loh umurnya. Terus ada cipratan asam di jidat dia. Holmes sat up in his chair in considerable excitement. I thought as much, said he. Have you ever observed that his ears are pierced for earrings? Yes, sir. He told me that a gypsy had done it for him when he was a lad. Said Holmes, sinking back in deep thought. He is still with you? Oh, yes, sir. I have only just left him. And has your business been attended to in your absence? Nothing to complain of, sir. There's never very much to do of a morning. That will do, Mr. Wilson. I shall be happy to give you an opinion upon the subject in the course of a day or two. Today is Saturday, and I hope that by Monday we may come to a conclusion. Well, Watson, said Holmes when our visitor had left us, what do you make of it all? I make nothing of it, I answered frankly. It is a most mysterious business. As a rule, said Holmes, the more bizarre a thing is, the less mysterious it proves to be. It is your commonplace, featureless crimes which are really puzzling. Just as a commonplace face is the most difficult to identify, but I must be prompt over this matter. Jadi kayaknya si Holmes ini udah tahu kejadiannya apa, tapi dia kayak mau mastiin lagi gitu kan. Kita balik lagi nih di sini kayak si Holmes ini nanyain penampilan Vincent Spaulding gimana kan. Kayak ada itunya nggak, ada tindikannya nggak? Katanya si Vincent Spaulding ini asisten kliennya Holmes ini ada tindikannya, katanya yang bikinin tuh orang gypsy gitu waktu dia masih muda. Terus kayak, ini asisten bisa kerja sama kamu nggak? Iya masih, ini kayak itu baru aja ditinggalin gitu kan, lagi ngurusin bisnisnya. Holmes nanya, bisnis kamu siapa yang ngurusin waktu kamu pergi? Ya si asisten ini kan gitu kan. Nah baru deh ini kayaknya si Holmes baru bakal ngejelasin. Ditanya kan sama kliennya, what are you going to do then? I asked. To smoke, he answered. Oh my god, kalian masih dengerin Kola terharu. Kola kira karena tadi sih kalian ninggalin Kola. Makasih banyak yang masih nonton. I love you guys. Ini ya, oke. Ini bukan. Ini Watson nanyain ke Holmes. What are you going to do then? I asked. To smoke, he answered. It is quite a three-pipe problem, and I beg that you won't speak to me for 15 minutes. Jadi katanya masalahnya mikirnya bakal agak lama. Terus dia disuruh jangan ajak ngomong si Holmes ini selama setengah jam. Memang sih si Holmes ini terkenal. Kalau dia lagi mikir, dia nggak mau ada yang ngomong sama sekali. Bahkan kalau misalnya dia adaptasinya itu kayak literally kalau Watson mikir aja, terus si Holmes ngerasa pikirannya Holmes tuh kedengeran di kepala dia, itu kayak disuruh diem gitu. Memang ya. Hai. Terima kasih yang masih nonton. Thank you. Apa ini? He curled himself up in his chair with his thin knees drawn up to his hog-like nose, and there he sat with his eyes closed and his black clay pipe thrusting out like the bill of some strange bird. I had come to the conclusion that he had dropped asleep, and indeed was nodding myself, when he suddenly sprang out of his chair with the gesture of a man who has made up his mind and put his pipe down upon the mantelpiece. Sarasati? Is it Sarasati? Sarasati plays at the St. James Hall this afternoon, he remarked. What do you think, Watson? Could your patients spare you for a few hours? I have nothing to do today. My practice is never very absorbing. Jadi kayak si Holmes kan mikir gitu kan, lama gitu kan, gak gerak-gerak gitu, sampai si Holmes itu mikir dia tidur gitu. Tapi waktu dia baru aja mikir bahwa Holmesnya ketiduran, tahu-tahu dia berdiri lagi, kayak sprang back itu kayak apa ya, kayak ngempasin diri lagi gitu, berdiri lagi dengan gaya yang kayak abis ngerti sesuatu, kayak eureka moment gitu kan. Terus ya tahu-tahu dia nanya, si Watson lagi ada jadwal kah gitu, kayak pasienmu nih bisa biarin kamu pergi-pergi dulu nggak? Sementara kalau menurutnya si Watson kayak enggak ada apa-apa gitu, Kayak praktek ke dokter, praktek klinikku tuh nggak ngabisin waktu sebanyak itu gitu. Jadi kayak ya bisa lah diajak pergi-pergi sama Holmes gitu kan. Apa ini? Accompany me to do something, thank you too. No, thank you. Kola doesn't feel right streaming kalau misalnya nggak ada yang nonton. Jadi kayak Kola seneng kalau misalnya ada yang nonton, walaupun kayak cuma 2-3 pun Kola seneng gitu. Makasih banyak yang udah nonton. Then put on your hat and come. I'm going through the city first, and you can have some lunch on the way. I observed that there is a good deal of German music on the program, which is rather more to my taste than Italian or French. It is introspective, and I want to introspect. Come along. We traveled by the underground as far as Alders Gate, and a short walk took us to 6 Coburg Square, the scene of the singer's story, which we had listened to in the morning. It was a poky little shabby gentle place, where 4 lines of dingy 2-story brick houses look out into a small railed-in enclosure, where a lawn of meaty grass and a few clumps of faded laurel bushes made a hard fight against a smoke-laden and uncongenial atmosphere. 3 golf balls and a brown book with J.B. Wilson in white letters up on a corner house announced the place where our red-headed client carried on his business. Sherlock Holmes stopped in front of it with his head on one side and looked it all over, with his eyes shining brightly between puckered lids. Then he walked slowly up the street, and then down again to the corner, still looking keenly at the houses. Finally, he returned to the pawnbroker's and, having thumped vigorously upon the pavement with his stick 2 or 3 times, he went up to the door and knocked. It was instantly opened by a bright-looking, clean-shaven young fellow, who asked him to step in. "Thank you," said Holmes. "I only wish to ask you how you would go from here to the Strand." "Third right, fourth left," answered the assistant promptly, closing the door. "Smart fellow that," observed Holmes as we walked away. "He is, in my judgment, the 4th smartest man in London, and for daring I am not sure that he hasn't claimed to be 3rd. I have known something of him before." "Evidently," said I, "Mr. Wilson's assistant count for a good deal in this mystery of the red-headed league. I am sure that you inquired your way merely in order that you might see him, not him. What then? The knees of his trousers. And what did you see? What I expected to see. Why did you beat the pavement? My dear doctor, this is a time for observation, not for talk. We are spies in an enemy's country. We know something of 6 Coburg Square. Let us now explore the parts which lie behind it." Apa ini? Ada sesuatu di balik si asisten ini. Jadi tadi si Sherlock itu kayak nggak tahu, kayak pura-pura jadi orang random ngetok rumahnya, terus kayak pura-pura nanya jalanan. Kayaknya sih kalau mikir mungkin tuh dia sebenarnya cuma mau nge-observe si asistennya kliennya dia ini, si Vincent Spalding kan kliennya itu si J.B. Wilson, asistennya si Vincent Spalding. Kayaknya si Holmes ini cuma pengen tahu aja asistennya ini orangnya kayak gimana sih. Kayaknya mungkin dia ada kecurigaan tertentu juga deh kayaknya. Let me see. The road in which we found ourselves as we turned round the corner from the retired 6 Coburg Square presented a contrast to it as the front of a picture does to the back. It was one of the main arteries which conveyed the traffic of the city to the north and west. The roadway was plugged with the immense stream of commerce flowing in a double tide inward and outward, while the footpaths were black with the hurrying swarm of pedestrians. It was difficult to realize as we looked at the line of fine shops. What? Dare? Makasih banyak Biagi. Thank you for the track here. Makasih. Thank you. Hope you enjoy this reading. Apa ini? While the footpaths were black with a hurrying swarm of pedestrians, it was difficult to realize as we looked at the line of fine shops and stately business premises that there really appeared a battle on the other side upon the faded and stagnant square which we had just quitted. "Let me see," said Holmes, standing at a corner and glancing along the line. "I should like just to remember the order of the houses here. It is a hobby of mine to have an exact knowledge of London. There is Mortimer's, the tobacconist, a little newspaper shop, Coburg branch of the city, and Suburban Bank, the Vegetarian restaurant, and McFarlane's carriage building depot. That carries us right on to the other block. And now, Doctor, we've done our work, so it's time we had some play. A sandwich and a cup of coffee, and then off to Violin Land, where all the sweetness and delicacy and harmony, and there are no red-headed clients to vex us with their conundrums." Somehow, setelah ngecekin asistennya si J.B. Wilson ini, si Holmes ini kayak ngebahas tentang kota tempat mereka tinggal, daerah sekitar rumahnya si klien itu. Kayak apa namanya? Tempat mereka itu kayak scenery-nya, pemandangannya tuh bisa beda jauh gitu, daerah sekitar sana. Dari depannya itu sama belakangnya beda, tampak depan tampak belakang kotanya itu beda gitu kan. Kayak yang depannya itu ya jalan utama, jalan arteri gitu, jalan yang rame gitu kan. Tapi di belakangnya itu ya footpaths adalah kayak jalan-jalan tempat orang jalan juga gitu. Maksudnya kayak di depan tuh jalan arteri, kayak mobil carriage itu apa ya? Kereta-kereta lewat gitu kan, orang rame jalan, terus kayak barang-barang jualan, kayak barang-barang dagangan juga lewat situ, kayak barang-barang train itu lewat situ. Sementara kalau di belakang itu adalah kayak semacam alley, kayak gang-gang, jalan-jalan kecil gitu yang penuh dengan kayak ya orang-orang yang jalan, dan juga tempat yang stagnan gitu, nggak banyak aktivitas gitu kan. Makanya kayak kita mungkin di sini ngelihat sesuatu yang berbeda gitu dari depan sama belakang. Dan di situ si Holmes bilang, makanya hobiku itu adalah mengamati kota London gitu kan, kayak dia suka ngamatin barisan-barisan rumah di sini gitu, kayak untuk dapetin informasi, pengetahuan yang akurat tentang kota London itu gitu. Kayaknya petunjuk mengenai kasus ini tuh ada di sini gitu. Oke, let's go. Oh ya, di sini tuh kayak waktu dia udah ngejelasin kayak itu, dia malah bahas, makanya ini, malah tuh bilang ini makanya karena itu ini waktunya kita nonton konser. Maksudnya dia ngerujuk ke kata konser karena kayak time for a sandwich and a cup of coffee, kayak mereka makan siang dulu, diajakin kayak ini saatnya makan siang, terus baru mereka konser to Violin Land gitu kan. Sarasati ini mungkin nama pemain itu ya, pemain violin yang tadi diomongin ya. My friend was an enthusiastic musician, being himself not only a very capable performer but a composer of no ordinary merit. All the afternoon he sat in his stalls wrapped in the most perfect happiness, gently waving his long thin fingers in time to the music, while his gently smiling face and his languid, dreamy eyes were as unlike those of Holmes the sleuth-hound. Holmes the relentless, keen-witted, ready-handed criminal agent as it was possible to conceive. In his singular character, the dual nature alternately asserted itself, and his extreme exactness and astuteness represented, as I have often thought, the reaction against the poetic and contemplative mood which occasionally predominated in him. The swing of his nature took him from extreme languor to devouring energy, and, as I knew well. He was never so truly formidable as when, for days on end, he had been lounging in his armchair amid his improvisations and his black letter editions. Then it was that the lust of the chase would suddenly come upon him, and that his brilliant reasoning power would rise to the level of invention, until those who were unacquainted with his methods will look askance at him as on the man whose knowledge was not that of other mortals. When I saw him that afternoon so enwrapped in the music at St. James Hall, I felt that an evil time might be coming upon those whom he had set himself to hunt down. Ini agak dingin jadi kola agak hidung agak babet. Ya. Jadi di sini tuh Watson ceritain bahwa Holmes itu adalah musisi yang entusiastik. Emang sih. Holmes juga suka main violin kan. Dia berbakat lah di sisi itu juga gitu. Dan bahkan dia termasuk komposer yang berbakat gitu. Nah, dari sini tuh kayak si Watson kayak mengingat, kayak reminis itu apa ya? Kayak membayangkan gitu kan. Di kepalanya dia tuh kalau misalnya Holmes lagi diem, gentle smiling gitu kan, senyum halus gitu kan. Kayak apalagi kalau misalnya dia udah duduk di armchair dia, di kursi dia lama-lama gitu, sedang improvisasi gitu kan, lagi fokus gitu. Dia tuh sangat formidable, sangat kuat gitu. Mungkin bukan kuat ya, tapi kayak lebih kayak dapat diandalkan dan kayak sangat banyak skillnya gitu, sangat serba bisa gitu. Nah, setelah dalam yang kayak waktu di kasus ini, dia tuh bisa ngerasain kayak waktu si Holmes udah memecahkan kasusnya, ini kayaknya waktu punishment, is it punishment? Kayak waktunya menghukum orang-orang ini gitu, kayaknya orang-orang yang berkaitan dengan kasus ini akan mendapatkan sesuatu lah dari Holmes itu, akan dihajar tanda kutip gitu ya, kayak karena si Watson ini ngerasain auranya kok evil banget, kayak setan banget kalau waktu si Holmesnya ini lagi apa namanya, lagi on streak gitu, lagi on his time gitu. You want to go home? No doubt, Doctor. Oh, Doctor, he remarked as we emerged. Yes, it will business to do which will take some hours. This business at Cabaret Square is serious. Why serious? A considerable crime is in contemplation. I have every reason to believe that we shall be in time to stop it. But today, being Saturday, rather complicates matters. I shall want your help tonight. At what time? 10 will be early enough. I shall be at Baker Street at 10. Very well, and I say, Doctor, there may be some little danger, so kindly put your army revolver in your pocket. He waved his hand, turned on his heel, and an instant among the crowd. Si Holmes udah tahu kalau misalnya balik, tapi tetap saja rencananya si Holmes harus tetap dijalankan. Dia bilang kita ada urusan serius di Cabaret Square. Waktu ditanyakan sudah ada aksi kriminal yang sudah direncanakan matang-matang. Cuma entah kenapa katanya karena ini hari Sabtu halnya jadi lebih rumit. Kalau juga nggak tahu kenapa ya. Terus dia minta Watson buat janjian sama dia, ketemu dia. Akhirnya mereka janjian ketemu di Baker Street jam 10 malam kalau nggak salah, ya kan? Nah, abis itu abis udah minta ke Watson untuk bawa revolvernya, senjatanya, ya udah dia kayak balik lagi, terus kayak ngilang lah di antara kerumunan. I trust that I am not more dense than my neighbors. But I was always oppressed with a sense of my own stupidity in my dealings with Sherlock Holmes. Ya, jadi Watson rasanya dia nggak lebih bego dari orang-orang sekitarnya lah gitu. Tapi tiap kali dia lagi bareng Holmes itu kadang-kadang dia ngerasa tertekan gitu, kayak merasa bego. Basically merasa bego kalau misalnya dia lagi di sekitarnya Holmes. Here I had heard what he had heard. I had seen what he had seen, and yet from his words it was evident that he saw clearly not only what had happened but what was about to happen, while to me the whole business was still confused and grotesque. As I drove home to my house in Kensington, I thought over it all, from the extraordinary story of the red-headed copier of the encyclopedia down to the visit to 6 Colbert Square, and the ominous words with which he had parted from me. What was this nocturnal expedition, and why should I go armed? Where were we going, and what were we to do? I had the hint from Holmes that this smooth-faced pawnbroker's assistant was a formidable man, a man who might play a deep game. I tried to puzzle it out, but gave it up in despair and set the matter aside until Mike should bring an explanation. Di sini si Watson tuh kayak ngerasa bodoh gitu. Soalnya kayak dia tuh udah lihat apa yang si Holmes lihat, udah dengar apa yang Holmes dengar, udah ngalamin apa yang Holmes alamin, tapi dia tetap clueless, sementara Holmes di situ kayak udah tahu apa yang terjadi dan apa yang akan terjadi gitu. Jadi ya semacam minder gitulah Watsonnya gitu kan. Kayak akhirnya dia kayak nyerah gitu kan, nggak tahu kok si Holmes bisa berpikiran seperti itu. Terus kayak ya udahlah, dia tunggu malam aja lah, ikutin plannya Holmes. Terus kayak ngeliat penjelasannya dari Holmes sendiri sambil ya see what happens next gitu kan. It was 9:15 when I started from home and made my way across the park and so through Oxford Street to Baker Street. The hansoms was standing at the door, and as I entered the passage, I heard the sound of voices from above. On entering his room, I found Holmes in a maiden conversation with 2 men, one of whom I recognized as Peter Jones, the official police agent, while the other was a long, thin, set-faced man with a very shiny hat and oppressively respectable frock coat. "Ha! Our party is complete," said Holmes, buttoning up his pea jacket and taking his heavy hunting crop from the rack. "Watson, I think you know Mr. Jones of Scotland Yard? Let me introduce you to Mr. Merriweather, who is to be our companion in tonight's adventure." Jadi waktu Watson nyampe di sana, udah ada orang dari Scotland Yard. Scotland Yard ini mungkin semacam ekuivalennya kantor polisi ya kalau di sana waktu itu ya. Kayak semacam kan sempat ada ceritanya gitu kan, kalau si Sherlock Holmes ini kayak punya sekutu di kepolisian. Nah ini kayaknya sih itu salah satunya lah ini. Terus ada Mr. juga. Jadi dari Scotland Yard itu di sini ada Mr. Jones and Mr. Merriweather. In tonight's adventure, we're hunting in couples again, Doctor, you see, said Jones in his consequential way. Our friend here is a wonderful man for starting a chase. Once is an old dog to help him to do the running down. I hope a wild goose might not prove to be the end of our chase, observed Mr. Merriweather gloomily. You may place considerable confidence in Mr. Holmes, sir, said the police agent loftily. He has his own little methods, which are, if you won't mind my saying so, just a little too theoretical and fantastic, but he has the makings of a detective in him. It is not too much to say that once or twice, as in that business of the Chiltern murder and the Agra treasure, he has been more nearly correct than the official force. Jadi kayak ini petugas polisi yang ngeyakinin ke temannya bahwa tenang aja, walaupun Holmesnya seperti ini, dia sebenarnya apa namanya, not too much say us that business. Jadi kayak bantuannya Mr. Holmes tuh dan kayak analisa-analisanya Mr. Holmes tuh seringkali benar, seperti di kasus-kasus sebelumnya. Yang disebutkan di sini adalah treasure, harta karun Agra gitu. Kayak analisis dia tuh, kayak deduksi dia tuh seringkali benar, terlebih dibandingin force yang official, force resmi kayak polisi. Maksudnya kayak dibanding petugas-petugas resmi atau institusi resmi gitu, kayak kepolisian. Oh, if you say so, Mr. Jones, it is all right, said the stranger with deference. Still, I confess that I miss my rubber. It is the first Saturday night for 27 years that I haven't had my rubber. Dia kangen karet apa ya? Aku juga bingung sih, ini kayak karet apa yang dimaksud. Apakah ini kayak semacam hal yang lost in translation? Is it? I think you will find, said Sherlock Holmes, that you will play for a higher stake tonight than you have ever done yet. But the play will be more exciting. For you, Mr. Merriweather, the stake will be some £30,000. And for you, Jones, it will be the man upon whom you wish to lay your hands. John Clay, the murderer, thief, smasher, and forger, he is a young man, Mr. Merriweather. But he is at the head of his profession, and I would rather have my bracelets on him than on any criminal in London. He is a remarkable man, is young John Clay. His grandfather was a royal duke, and he himself has been to Eton and Oxford. His brain is as cunning as his fingers, and though we meet signs of him at every turn, we never know where to find the man himself. He'll crack a crib in Scotland one week, and be raising money to build an orphanage in Cornwall the next. I've been on his track for years and have never set eyes on him yet. Jadi kayaknya di sini si Sherlock Holmes ini pointing out bahwa mungkin yang akan mereka temui ini adalah kriminal yang terkenal, kayak kriminal kelas kakap. Tapi bukan sembarang kriminal. Kriminal ini adalah kriminal yang melakukan berbagai macam aksi kriminal, thief, smasher, forger. Kayak dia maling juga, rampok juga, terus kayak memalsukan dokumen segala macam juga. Dan dia tuh kayak remarkable man, punya kualitas tersendiri gitu, kayak berbeda lah dari yang lain. Kakeknya itu adalah ningrat gitu kan, punya area yang dikuasai gitu, dan dia sendiri belajar di Eton dan Oxford. Terus dia juga nggak cuma sekedar ngelakuin aksi kriminal, tapi juga kadang-kadang kayak muncul bentar di sana, terus di sini tentu muncul bikin panti asuhan. Jadi track recordnya agak sesuatu gitu ya. Dan terus kayak walaupun si Holmes ini udah ngejar dia, sebenarnya dia tuh nggak pernah gitu loh bisa bener-bener ketemu dia, maksudnya bisa bener-bener nangkep dan kayak eye to eye sama si John Clay ini. Halo yang baru pada datang, Colabanwaa. Apa kabar? Korang di sini lagi baca The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes by Arthur Conan Doyle. Ini udah part 2 nya, yang sebelumnya part 1. Oke, kalau lanjut baca ya. Kalau ada apa-apa, chat aja di chat box biar Allah juga bisa bacain buat kalian, bisa nyapa kalian dan juga tahu kabar kalian, oke? I hope that I may have the pleasure of introducing you tonight. I've had one or two little turns, also with Mr. John Clay, and I agree with you that he is at the head of his profession. It is past 10, however, and quite time that we started. You two will take the first hansom, Watson and I will follow in the second. Sherlock Holmes wasn't very communicative during the long drive and lay back in the cab humming the tunes which he had heard in the afternoon. We rattled through an endless labyrinth of gaslit streets until we emerged into Farrington Street. We are close there now. my friend remarked. This fellow Meriwether is a bank director, and personally interested in the matter. I thought it as well to have Jones with us also. He is not a bad fellow, though an absolute imbecile in his profession. He has one positive virtue. He is as brave as a bulldog and tenacious as a lobster if he gets his claws upon anyone. Here we are and they are waiting for us. Wah, masih baca-baca. Halo Malam Lur. Ya, masih baca-baca. Niatnya Kola di sini mau namatin tiap part. Oh, udah 2 jam ya streamnya. Ya, nggak apa-apa sih. Ini kayaknya mungkin 20 halaman lagi selesai. Tadi dari halaman 70 soalnya. Apa kabar? Udah lama gak lihat Lur. Halo, Colabanwaa. Ya. Let's see. Jadi di sini Sherlock Holmes sama bagian dari kepolisian tadi dari Scotland Yard to Mr. Jones. Terus Meriwether, tapi Meriwether ini, where's Meriwether? Dia Meriwether ini adalah kepala bank juga, dan ada interest khusus dalam masalah ini, dalam masalah kasusnya si J.B. Wilson. Okay. They had reached the same crowded thoroughfare in which we had found ourselves in the morning. Our cabs were dismissed, and, following the guidance of Mr. Meriwether, we passed down a narrow passage and through a side door which he opened for us. Within there was a small corridor which ended in a very massive iron gate. This also was opened and led down a flight of winding stone steps which terminated at another formidable gate. Mr. Meriwether stopped to light a lantern and then conducted us down a dark, earth-smelling passage, and so after opening a third door into a huge vault or cellar which was piled all round with crates and massive boxes. Jadi mereka ternyata ke suatu tempat nih. Udah disuruh balik itu keretanya, cabsnya. Dan mereka kayak di tempat itu ternyata ada narrow passage, ada kayak jalan sempit. Dan di situ tempatnya ada banyak kayak udah ke bawah-bawah gitu kan. Ada gerbang gede dari besi. Tempatnya juga agak bau gitu. Tapi ada berangkas di situ, yang menarik itu ada berangkas dan juga ada cellar. Cellar tuh kayak gelontong. Is it a word? Kayak semacam tempat yang kayak tabung gentong wine. Cellar tuh gentong mas. Yang isinya banyak kotak-kotak dan juga kotak yang lebih gede lagi. Kalau crate tuh kayak kotak kayu, peti kayu. Kalaca numpang tidur lagi, ya nggak apa-apa kok dir. Ini juga ya masih nggak, ya sebenarnya udah mau selesai, tapi kayak masih ada 20 halaman lagi lah. Maksudnya nggak cepet-cepet banget. Halo Colabanwaa everyone yang pada baru join stream. Hello. We are continuing with the adventure of Sherlock Holmes. I need that. You're not very vulnerable from above, Holmes remarked as he held up the lantern and gazed about him. Nor from below, said Mr. Meriwether, striking his stick upon the flags which lined the floor. Why, dear me, it sounds quite hollow, he remarked, looking up in surprise. I must really ask you to be a little more quiet, said Holmes severely. You have already imperiled the whole success of our expedition. Might I beg that you would have the goodness to sit down upon one of those boxes and not to interfere? The solemn Mr. Meriwether perched himself upon the crate with a very injured expression upon his face, while Holmes fell upon his knees upon the floor and, with the lantern and a magnifying lens, began to examine minutely the cracks between the stones. A few seconds sufficed to satisfy him, for he sprang to his feet again and put his glass in his pocket. We have at least an hour before us, he remarked, for they can hardly take any steps until the good pawnbroker is safely in bed. Then they will not lose a minute, for the sooner they do their work, the longer a time they will have for their escape. We are at present, Doctor, as no doubt you have divined, in the cellar of the city branch of one of the principal London banks. Mr. Merriweather is the chairman of the directors, and he will explain to you that there are reasons why the more daring criminals of London should take a considerable interest in the cellar at present. It is our French code, whispered the director. We have had several warnings that an attempt might be made upon it. Your French code? Yes. We had occasion some months ago to strengthen our resources and borrowed for that purpose 30,000 Napoleons from the Bank of France. It has become known that we have never had occasion to unpack the money, and that it is still lying in our cellar. The crate upon which I sit contains 2,000 Napoleons packed between layers of lead foil. Our reserve of bullion is much larger at present than is usually kept in a single branch office, and the directors have had misgivings upon the subject, which were very well justified, observed Holmes, and now it is time that we arrange our little plans. I expect that within an hour matters will come to a head. In the meantime, Mr. Merriweather, we must put the screen over that dark lantern. Jadi, ternyata tempat yang mereka kunjungi ini adalah brankas dari Bank of London. I'm sure it's Bank of London. Isinya itu adalah emas dari Prancis. Mereka tuh punya puluhan ribuan Napoleon dari Bank of France, dari Bank Prancis itu di tempat yang mereka kunjungi ini. Dan di sini tuh mereka kan dijelasin sama kepala bank ya kan ya. Kayak si kepala banknya ini ternyata udah dapat peringatan bahwa memang kemungkinan bakal ada yang mencoba mencuri emas-emas ini dari Bank of France. Oke, selanjutnya ada apa ini? And sit in the dark? I am afraid so. I had brought a pack of cards in my pocket, and I thought that as we were a party carry, you might have your rubber after all. But I see that the enemy's preparations have gone so far that they cannot risk the presence of a light. And first of all, we must choose our positions. These are daring men, and though we shall take them at a disadvantage, they may do us some harm unless we are careful. Jadi si kepala banknya disuruh matiin lenteranya karena Holmes yakin banget bahwa orang yang bakalan malingin emas ini itu persiapannya udah sangat matang. Jadi mereka nggak bisa ngebiarin ada lampu yang nyala. Maksudnya kalau lampunya nyala, kemungkinan rencana mereka bakalan ambiar. Antara orang yang jadi makin gampang bernavigasi di dalam brankas, atau justru mereka bakalan jadi lebih hati-hati karena ketahuan kalau Holmes dan kawan-kawannya di dalam situ. Oke, di sini mereka harus hati-hati katanya. I shall stand behind this crate, and you conceal yourself behind those. Then, when I flash a light upon them, close in swiftly. If they fire, Watson, I have no compunction about shooting them down. Jadi kalau misalnya Watson disuruh kalau misalnya lawan mereka yang nanti nembak, Watson juga jangan ragu-ragu buat nembak balik gitu. I placed my revolver upon the top of the wooden case behind which I crouched. Holmes shot the light across the front of his lantern and left us in pitch darkness. Such an absolute darkness as I have ever before experienced. The smell of hot metal remained to assure us that the light was still there, ready to flash out at a moment's notice. To me, with my nerves worked up to a pitch of expectancy, there was something depressing and subduing in the sudden gloom, and in the cold dank air of the vault. They have but one retreat, whispered Holmes. That is back through the house into 6-covered square. I hope that you have done what I asked you, Jones. I have an inspector and 2 officers waiting at the front door. Jadi kayaknya jalan keluarnya itu lewat rumahnya si J.B. Wilson ini kayaknya. Jadi kayaknya rumahnya dipakai buat itu, buat keluar. Dan di sini si Johnson udah disuruh buat naruh inspektur dan petugas yang menunggu di pintu depan rumah itu. Oke. Bentar. Kalau minum dulu ya guys, kalau kayak agak panas dalam, gomenasai. Oke, wait. Kalau habis minum coba mata. Halo, oka. I'm back. Kalau habis minum, hehe. Jadi sekarang udah gak panas dalam lagi. Let's see, tadi kita sampai mana? Wah, kola. Jadi kepikiran ide stream bacain textbook kuliah. Halo, welcome Atma. Iya boleh juga bacain buku textbook kuliah. Nemenin baca. Kan soalnya kan ada orang yang lebih demen belajar sambil dibacain atau sambil dari audio gitu kan. Kalau sebenarnya orangnya visual. Tapi Kola tahu ada orang yang lebih demen sambil dibacain gitu, makanya kayak ada yang nggak bisa sambil nyatet pelajaran karena mereka fokus ngedengerin pelajarannya. Kalau Kola sih tetap fokus nyatet karena kalau belajar visual biasanya. Coba mata, kalau kayaknya bakalan agak sendawa dikit. Oke, sekarang posisi HP-nya udah bener. Oke, ayo kita lanjut baca lagi. Apa ini? Stay hydrated. Makasih Alexei. Makasih juga Messi nonton. Ini Alexei dari tadi betah banget nontonnya. Makasih, asli dan makasih banget. Apa ya? Ini kayaknya mulutnya Kola lagi error deh. Mangap-mangap doang tapi nggak gerak. Oh iya, kayaknya mendingan kayak sekarang. Alright. Halo. Bentar ya guys. Kola ngilang dulu. Kola ini benerin ini dulu. Ini kayaknya dia kalau mingkem kagak mau mingkem. Tutup mata. Mana ini? Oke, kayaknya udah bener. Jadi dia emang kadang-kadang mesti di reset gitu biar dia mau mingkem. Kenapa kamu gak mau mingkem sayang? Ya sudahlah. Gini aja lah ya. Ini udah bisa mingkem deh. Alright, tadi udah nyampe mana ya? Aku dengerin, aku ditemenin Kak Kola. Makasih Alexi. Halo yang pada baru datang, Colabanwaa. Nah ini tadi tuh udah nyampe di, aduh paha Kola panas nih, laptop Kola panas soalnya. Bentar, sorry ganti posisi. Mana ya itu, tadi udah nyampe. Ketemu. Then we have stopped all the holes, and now we must be silent and wait. What a time it seemed! From comparing notes afterwards, it was but an hour and a quarter. Yet it appeared to me that the night must have almost gone and the dawn be bright. Udah bener nggak ya? Bener kah? Pengen nganter tidur yang ini Mbak Kola? Iya dong, hehehe. Semoga kalian suka. Kola suka baca cerita kayak gini soalnya sebenarnya. Jadi kayak itu gitu Kola baca, kalian juga denger gitu kan? Hehe. Ya bahasa Inggris Kola nggak bagus-bagus banget sih. Masih suka kepleset dikit, tapi Kola agak cadel lidahnya, jadi ya makan. Tapi ya, if you guys like it, I'm very happy. Hai, okay. Hai, tadaima. Ini tadiちょっと待って。ちょっとね。Kalau misalnya streaming masih belum benar, di refresh ya. Coba biar itu ngetik dulu. Mate. Wah, halo everyone, Colabanwaa. Tadi habis benerin DC. Ini baru mau lanjut baca lagi. Ada siapa aja? Jangan lupa taruh chat di chatbox ya, kalau misalnya kalian mau. Biar kalau bisa nyapa. Tadi dia nyampe mana ya? Kalau lupa gara-gara tadi kena DC lagi. Kenapa sih bawaan kayak DC sering banget? Apa karena laptop Kola panas ya? Nangka-nangkanya. Then we have stopped all the holes, and now we must be silent and wait. Oh ya, Colabanwaa yang pada baru lewat. What a time it seemed! From comparing notes afterward, it was about an hour and a quarter. Yet it appeared to me that the night must have almost gone, and the dawn be breaking above us. My limbs were weary and stiff, for I feared to change my position, yet my nerves were worked up to the highest pitch of tension, and my hearing was so acute that I could not only hear the gentle breathing of my companions, but I could distinguish the deeper, heavier in-breath of the bulky Jones from the thin, sighing note of the bank director. From my position, I could look over the case in the direction of the floor. Apa ini? Semangat bacanya. Hello Eddie. Colabanwaa. Apa kabar Eddie? Kayaknya ini pertama kalinya Kola lihat Eddie di stream Kola ya. Halo. Is it the first time? Mimi ini dipin aja soal refreshnya. Right. Kola suka lupa kalau Kola bisa pin-pin kayak gini. Komenasai. Kola kagok gitu sebenarnya. Also ini Kola, ini kayaknya 10 halaman lagi sih untungnya. Ini kayaknya laptop Kola panas banget. Mungkin itu sebabnya tadi suka disi-disi. Kadang-kadang wifi reseptornya suka error kalau misalnya panas laptopnya. Nani Tuna? Ada apakah Tuna? Tuna. Colabanwaa Tuna. Omedetou Tuna. Oke, ayo kita lanjut baca lagi. Nani ga sukai desu ka? yang happened? Suddenly my eyes caught the glint of a light. At first it was but a lurid spark upon the stone pavement, then it lengthened out until it became a yellow line, and then, without any warning or sound, a gash seemed to open and a hand appeared, a white, almost womanly hand, which felt about in the center of the little area of light. For a minute or more the hand with its writhing fingers protruded out of the floor, then it was withdrawn as suddenly as it appeared, and all was dark again save the single lurid spark which marked a change between the stones. Its disappearance, however, was but momentary. With a rending, tearing sound, one of the broad white stones turned over upon its side and left a square gaping hole, through which streamed the light of a lantern. Over the edge there peered a clean-cut, boyish face, which looked keenly about it, and then, with a hand on either side of the aperture, drew itself shoulder-high and waist-high, until one knee rested upon the edge. In another instant he stood at the side of the hole, and was calling after him a companion, big and small like himself, with a pale face and a shock of very red hair. Orangnya udah mulai muncul ini. Dan apa ini? Halo RKMI, halo yang pada baru datang. Kalian udah pada ngapain kah? Aku kira kalian udah pada tidur. Hehe. Colabanwaa ya geng? Are you guys going to sleep? Apa kabar? It's getting tense. Yes, it is getting tense. Langsung maaf ya, biasanya kalau stream pakai bahasa Indonesia, tapi karena ini teksnya udah bahasa Inggris, kalau kadang-kadang gak mau ngomong bahasa Inggris komen sayang, tapi gak apa-apa, kalian mau cerita bahasa Indonesia juga gak masalah. Hehe. Apa ini? Jadi kayak little area of light. Became a yellow line. Jadi kayaknya dari stone pavementnya itu kelihatan kayak akhirnya ada kayak bukaan gitu, ada bukaan, terus ada tahu ada tangan muncul, tapi tangannya serem ya, almost womanly. Jadi kayak tangannya ini kayak lentik kali ya, jarinya jari lentik gitu ya, build orang yang lagi nyusup ke brankas nih jarinya lentik gitu, kayak dia keluar dari lantai. Then it was withdrawn as suddenly as it appeared. Habis sudah dibuka, tangannya balik lagi. Mungkin kayak dia lagi naik angkat badan kali, makanya dia balik lagi ke dalam. Tapi terus nggak lama kemudian kelihatan ada cahaya lentera kan. Terus kelihatan orangnya itu rambut merah. Berarti siapa yang rambut merah? Kita kan dari sepanjang kasus tadi kan, ini kan nama kasusnya The Red Headed Lee. Kalian bisa tebak kali ya ini siapa yang rambutnya merah ya. Hehehe. Apa ini? Kalau nggak nongol lama artinya ketiduran. Disclaimer, nggak apa-apa Alexei, it's okay, kan ini emang late night stream. Emang Kola juga tujuannya emang buat kayak ya nemenin kalian tidur. Kalau ada yang tiduran di stream justru malah sukses. Ya nggak, ya Kola jadi sendiri sih, tapi ya nggak apa-apa, kan hitungannya berarti ya Kola sukses tujuannya. Oke, let's continue. Mana ini? Tadi dia nyampe mana ya? Ini udah belum ya? Ya, a shock of very red hair. It's all clear. Kalau cadel maafkan ya, suka belibet bacanya. It's all clear, he whispered. Have you the chisel? Have you the chisel and the bags? Great Scott, jump! Archie, jump, and I'll swing for it. Sherlock Holmes had sprung out and seized the intruder by the collar. The other dived down the hole, and I heard the sound of running clothes as Jones clutched at his skirts. The light flashed upon the barrel of a revolver, but Holmes' hunting crop came down on the man's wrist, and the pistol clanked upon the stone floor. It's no use, John Clay, said Holmes politely. You have no chance at all. So I see, the other answered, with the utmost coolness. I fancy that my paw is alright, although I see you have got his coattails. There are 3 men waiting for him at the door, said Holmes. Oh, indeed. You seem to have done the thing very completely. I must compliment you. And I you, Holmes answered. Jadi mereka di sini puji-pujian gitu kayaknya. Ya memuji kejenakaan satu sama lain gitu kayak. Memuji ya trik-trik satu sama lain gitu. Ya mereka lagi gulat sih ini kayak tarik-tarikan, ada yang kayak ekor jasnya kesobek-sobek gitu. Nah deh ini kepalanya Kola mulai tetot-tetot. Maika oke. Ini nggak apa-apa kali kayak gini. Well and I you, Holmes answered. Your red-headed idea was very new and effective. You'll see your Paul again presently, said Jones. He's quicker at climbing down Holmes than I am. Just hold out while I fix the derbies. I beg that you will not touch me with your filthy hands, remarked our prisoner, as the handcuffs fluttered upon his wrist. You may not be aware that I have royal blood in my veins. Have the goodness also when you address me always to say sir and please. Jadi ini si kriminalnya itu agak songong kayak ya apa ya, agak arogan lah bahwa dia ada darah ningrat gitu kan. Alright, said Jones with stern snigger. Well, would you please, sir, march upstairs where we can get a cab to carry your highness to the police station. Di sarkas ini. Yang mulia mau dibawa ke kantor polisi. That is fair, said John Clay serenely. He made a sweeping bow to the three of us and walked quietly off in the custody of the detective. Really, Mr. Holmes, said Mr. Merriweather as we followed them from the cellar. I do not know how the bank can thank you or repay you. There is no doubt that you have detected and defeated in the most complete manner one of the most determined attempts at bank robbery that have ever come within my experience. I have had one or two little scores of my own to settle with Mr. John Clay, said Holmes. I have been at some small expense over this matter, which I shall expect the bank to refund, but beyond that I am amply repaid by having had an experience which is in many ways unique, and by hearing the very remarkable narrative of the Red-Headed League. You see, Watson, he explained in the early hours of the morning as we sat over a glass of whiskey and soda in Baker Street, it was perfectly obvious from the first that the only possible object of this rather fantastic business of the advertisement of the League and the copying of the encyclopedia must be to get this not overbright pawnbroker out of the way for a number of hours every day. Jadi ini bagi Holmes sudah jelas alasan kasus ini tuh sebenarnya satu. Si kliennya Holmes ini, si Mr. Yang kerjanya jadi pawnbroker, si Mr. Wilson, itu kayak mereka cuma butuh Mr. Wilson buat kayak pergi dari rumahnya karena rumahnya itu mau dijadikan jalur pencurian gitu loh. Kayak mereka cuma butuh si yang punya rumahnya ini, si Mr. Wilsonnya, untuk nggak di rumah selama beberapa jam gitu. Jadi conclusion darinya dia itu. Great crack cray, huha. Nanti nih, huha. Also hello, I've never seen you here before. Aku belum pernah lihat kamu di sini. Apa kabar? Halo. Manggil apa nih? Great crack, okay? Halo. Di sini kita lagi baca The Adventure of Sherlock Holmes yang part 2. Ini nggak tahu sih, paling beberapa halaman lagi selesai. Ini udah kayak conclusion ya. But either way, makasih sudah mampir. Thank you. Mana ini? For a number of hours every day. It was a curious way of managing it, but really it will be difficult to suggest a better. The method was no doubt suggested to Clay's ingenious mind by the color of his accomplice's hair. The 4 pounds a week was a lure. Jadi kayak 4 pound sterling ini, yang gaji 4 pound sterling per minggu ini cuma umpan gitu, biar orangnya mau keluar rumah dan tinggalin rumahnya berjam-jam gitu. Which must draw him, and what was it to them who were playing for thousands? Ya 4 pound sterling per minggu sih kalau buat mereka yang main kayak kayak mengincar uang ribuan pound sterling atau ribuan gold Prancis yang mereka mau curi ini mah bukan apa-apa gitu. Halo Akemi, halo. Ini lagi baca, tapi ini udah conclusionnya sih. Ya, paling beberapa halaman lagi selesai. Colabanwaa everyone, siapa aja yang baru datang? Halo. The 4 pounds a week was a lure, which must draw him, and what was it to them who were playing for thousands? They put in the advertisement. One rogue has the temporary office. The other rogue incites the man to apply for it, and together they manage to secure his absence every morning in the week. From the time that I heard of the assistant having come for half wages, it was obvious to me that he had some strong motive for securing the situation. Jadi Holmes pertama kali nebak itu nggak cuma dari warna rambut, tapi juga dari dari semenjak si asisten ini diketahui menerima gaji setengah harga pasar gitu, setengah harga normalnya pekerjaan dia. Ini pasti Holmes mikir ini pasti ada motif kuat untuk ngamanin tempat dia gitu, kayak ngamanin daerah rumahnya dia itu, rumahnya bosnya. But how could you guess what the motive was? Had there been women in the house, I should have suspected a mere vulgar intrigue. That, however, was out of the question. The man's business was a small one, and there was nothing in his house which could account for such elaborate preparations and such an expenditure as they were at. It must then be something out of the house. What could it be? I thought of the assistant's fondness for photography, and his trick of vanishing to the cellar. The cellar! There was the end of this tangled clue. Then I made the inquiries as to this mysterious assistant, and found that I had to deal with one of the coolest and most daring criminals in London. He was doing something in the cellar, something which took many hours a day for months on end. What could it be, once more? I could think of nothing save that he was running a tunnel to some other building. Jadi, setelah menginvestigasi keadaan rumahnya si kliennya ini, Holmes itu berpikir, kalau misalnya ada wanita di sana, bisa jadi kasus ini lebih vulgar gitu, mungkin affair atau semacamnya gitu kan. Tapi ternyata nggak ada, kan di sana yang perempuannya cuma cewek yang 14 tahun itu. Nah, di situ maka dia mikir, apakah rumahnya mau dimalingin kah? Tapi ternyata rumahnya juga tidak mewah-mewah banget, maksudnya nggak ada yang harganya mahal-mahal banget. Dari situ Holmes itu ingat, ini orang suka fotografi dan suka kayak kebiasaan ngilang ke dalam cellar. Walaupun waktu dijelasin sama Mr. Wilson katanya buat nyuci foto sih ya. Tapi dari situ si Holmes jadi tahu, ini kayaknya dia bikin terowongan nih ke bangunan lain gitu. Yang ternyata ya benar gitu kan, tadi udah ketangkep kan. Di sini kayak ternyata dia ketemu kriminal yang paling keren, jadi menurut dia itu kriminalnya itu keren sih. Siapa? John Clay. Is he a fan? Well, I won't judge if he is. Terus ini kita lanjut lagi ya. So far I had got, when we went to visit the scene of the action, I surprised you by beating one of the pavement with my stick. I was ascertaining whether the cellar stretched out in front or behind. It wasn't in front. Then I rang the bell, and as I hoped, the assistant answered it. We have had some skirmishes, but we had never set eyes upon each other before. I hardly looked at his face. His needs were what I wished to see. You must yourself have remarked how worn, wrinkled, and stained they were. They spoke of those hours of burrowing. The only remaining point was what they were burrowing for. I walked round the corner, saw the city and suburban bank abutted on our friend's premises, and felt that I had solved my problem. When you drove home after the concert, I called upon Scotland Yard and upon the chairman of the bank directors with the result that you have seen. Jadi kayak awalnya kayak si Holmes kayak ngetes gitu, kayak waktu dia lagi mencek bel itu kayak dia mau tahu itu samarnya ke arah mana gitu dari reaksi si asistennya itu gitu. Terus awalnya kayak bingung kan, tapi setelah ngeliat bajunya gitu kayak eh, bajunya tuh kayak worn, kayak udah lusuh gitu kan, wrinkle, udah kayak berkerut-kerut gitu kan, kayak burrowing itu apa ya, menggali apa ya, nah maksudnya kayak apa yang di burrow gitu kan. Terus setelah kayak burrowing itu apa ya, aku tuh lupa. Let me see, what does burrowing mean? Burrowing. Burrowing itu bener berarti denoting an animal that makes holes or tunnels. Basically burrowing itu menggali sih, bener berarti kayak semacam kata lain yang menggali. Anyway, I don't know who is still listening to me. If you're still alive, please say something, maybe. I don't know, maybe Alexia already fell asleep, but it's okay. Kayak ini kita tuh tadi kayak si Holmes itu kan ngeliat bajunya lusuh kan, keriput, kerucut, ke berkerut, tapi kayak dia tuh tahu itu tuh kayak hasil menggali, makanya bajunya lusuh dan berkerut gitu. Tapi abis menggali apa gitu, menggali kemana gitu arahnya. Tapi waktu mereka di luar rumah, kayak mereka lihat, oh ternyata round the corner, di ujung jalan gitu kan, ada bank, City and Suburban Bank, yang ya lokasinya dekat sama rumah si kliennya dia. Dan disitu kayak Holmes, oh ini tuh tujuannya gitu kan. And how could you tell that they will make their attempt tonight? I asked. Watson bingung, kok tahu sih bakal malam ini gitu beraksinya gitu. Well, when they closed their late offices, that was a sign that they cared no longer about Mr. Jabelson's presence. In other words, that they had completed their tunnel. But it was essential that they should use it soon, as it might be discovered, or the bullion might be removed. Saturday would suit them better than any other day, as it would give them 2 days for their escape. For all these reasons, I expected them to come tonight. Jadi katanya bahwa mereka nutup kantor yang tempat kerjanya Pak Wilson ini, yang the red-headed lily itu, ya itu adalah tanda bahwa mereka udah nggak peduli lagi sama ada apa enggaknya Mr. Wilson, karena si terowongannya udah digali gitu. Tapi mereka perlu pakai cepet, jadi kayaknya paling pas itu hari Sabtu, karena kalau saya mereka pakai hari Sabtu, mereka bakalan punya 2 hari untuk kabur. 2 hari ini mungkin, ini nggak dijelasin sih, tapi kayaknya 2 hari ini mungkin karena hari libur kali ya kan, Sabtu Minggu biasanya libur gitu ya. For all these reasons, I expected them to come tonight. You reasoned it out beautifully, I exclaimed in unfeigned admiration. It is so long a chain, and yet a free link. It's true. It saves me from ennui. I'm not sure how you read that. Okay, new vocabulary then. Okay, I will check how we should read it later, after the stream. He answered, yawning. Alas, I already feel it closing in upon me. My life is spent in one long effort to escape from the commonplaces of existence. These little problems help me to do so. And you are a benefactor of the race, said I. He shrugged his shoulders. Well, perhaps, after all, it is of some little use, he remarked. Holmes says, I cannot read this. I cannot, I'm pretty sure it's French, but I cannot speak French. I don't want to butcher it. Gustave Flaubert wrote to George Sand. Let's see, what does this mean? Can we no, we cannot block this. I'm curious, what does this mean? Okay, let us Oh, I finally know what it means. I kind of look it up. I Google it, and it said the saying at the end of the story, the thing that Holmes said, yang dibilang si Gustav Flaubert ditulis ke George Sand, artinya adalah the man is nothing, the work is everything. Orang itu bukan siapa-siapa. Yang besar itu yang adalah apa? Yang sesuatu itu justru karyanya, pekerjaannya gitu. So, jadi kayak masalahnya bukan apakah orangnya red hat atau orang itu siapa, tapi kayak apa sih yang dikerjakan orang itu gitu. How do these things work gitu. Gimana kayak apa yang sedang mereka lakukan sebenarnya. It's that gitu. Bukan biar tidak terfokus sama orangnya gitu. Ya, kayaknya itu sih ending story part 2-nya Sherlock Holmes kali ini. Ini udah mau 3 jam juga. Ini kayak streamnya terlamanya Kola deh. Ya udah gak apa-apa ya. Tapi nih asli sih ini stream terlama. Kola juga mulai aus dan kayaknya mau ke toilet paling habis ini. Ya kalau misalnya kalian udah pada ketiduran pun ya tidak apa-apa. Nah kalau gitu Kola udahan dulu ya. Kola juga mau istirahat. Kola kaget sih bisa lama ini, soalnya kayak tadi Kola itu bangun pagi, jadi kayak sebenarnya aturan nggak bisa stay up selama ini. Oke kalau gitu ceritanya udahan. Nanti kita lanjut lagi mungkin ya 2-3 hari lagi kali ya. Kalau mau coba stream yang lain dulu sih, kayak mau nyoba main game, mungkin main game yang lain. Kayaknya kalau udah jadi bikin setupnya, moga-moga sih lumayan enak di mata. Ya, well, all in all, thank you for tuning in and see you next time. Semuanya Yasumi ya. Rest well, bye bye. Ya, Otsuwa bisa dia bangun. How are you? Halo. Otsukare, Yasumi, semuanya istirahat ya. Bye bye. Oh, Alexi juga masih bangun. Hai, otsukare semuanya. Bye. Blessing tidur malam ini. Hai. Ya, yokata. Sarewa yokata. Terima kasih ya semuanya sudah dengerin. Hehe. Bye bye. Oh iya, Oyasumi juga tuh nah. Oyasumi semuanya.